this area, basically this area is bad, this area is bad, and then we just keep drilling into the data.
No, so sorry, I was asking, something dropped it down from 30 minutes to 90 seconds, right? Was that
Yeah,
just
so
the
so
choice
so yeah, so we use and it could be Google or any of the platforms. Instead of running in our laptop, which will take about 30 minutes, what we do is we put it up into Google Cloud, and it's very, very much like the last lecture, where using Kubernetes, using containers, basically saying, rather than having a laptop, elastic, give it as much CPU memory and storage as it needs right now to run as fast as possible, but only for a short time.
Got it.
And so our curves are literally like, whoop, we're using a lot, and then boom, and drops off after the run's over.
Wow.
Which is the power of the cloud. That's the way to do it. So
Because the
well, I'll
power's
tell you
there.
what, we're right at 7:10. So why don't we go ahead and get started? We're a little bit lighter tonight. I don't know where everybody else is. I got one notice someone's going to be a little bit delayed, but I do want to start on time because I want to be cognizant of your time. We're starting to get a little more folks in. Welcome, Dion. Welcome, Julia. Yeah, welcome. Good to have you in, Daniel. Matt Grace, Bora. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And hopefully you guys did watch the video. I wanted to leave that up for those that were already in the room ahead of time, just to make sure as we start off session 4. So I always start off with a little bit of administration. Of course, this will be on the recording if you missed early. I did want to let you know, if you could, please do the speaker surveys. They started off well, and then it kind of died off. And I know your quarter's getting busy, but if you could just take a minute and a half, give us some feedback on the speakers, it really helps out for me. We did start grading your gap cases already, but I need a little bit more time on them. I usually go through a couple times. I've only been through once. So they're going to be graded and returned to you soon. I believe everyone that submitted, and there are a few of you that didn't, so I'm still going to encourage you to do so, for your final topic I returned. They all look really great. I'm looking forward to reading these papers. If you did not turn it in, please do so anyway, because I would like to record it ahead of time and then also give any feedback that might be there for that one. Dion, you asked me about how I do this broadcast, how I do, my setup with the lighting and camera and all. I put that out on the additional items tab of the CCLE for everybody. You're welcome to it. And Dion, you helped me realize that I did that at the very beginning of the pandemic. I didn't update it. It's been updated now. So all the links how I did the stuff, it's all out there. Special thanks to Andy, because he's helping me on our virtual reality. He's a little bit late to class, but he told me he's going to be that way. You're going to get a information sheet. I really want to try to do this. This is, from what I understand, I've talked to people all over campus. I'm on this massive group that is trying to get this accomplished for the last few years. If we do this, we will be the first class in all of UCLA that holds a virtual reality classroom. So I really want to make this work. And on the pre-class registration, I asked all of you, would you be willing? No one said no. I got 28 of the 30 responses. So I want to make sure from everybody, is there anyone here, because I can't do it unless we have 100% participation, that does not want to participate, at least try, for like the last hour of our last class in 2 weeks on virtual reality. It's going to be pretty immersive, so no issues, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a very detailed sheet. It's going to have screenshots on it, how to load the software, where to go. It's a thing called AltSpace VR. If you have a headset, great. If you know of a friend that you can borrow one, try. If not, it works fine on a Windows PC. It works fine on a Mac. It's just 2D instead of 3D. And we're going to give it a shot. And I've already got some real cool things set up in there, so we'll make that happen. It does require you to do some installation of the software. And of course, I want you to test it. And I'm going to be out there. I'm going to put up some times for everyone to come in and just test it out. I'll meet you in there. I'll put a whole bunch out there, morning, noon, and night, because I know we have folks literally all over the world in this class. So just pick one that works well in your schedule. Meet me in there, 5, 10, 15 minutes. I'll be in there. We'll make sure it works for you. And then we're ready to go on February 22nd. The other thing tonight, we're going to go into artificial intelligence and machine learning and neural networking. And this always gets, it's one of my favorites. It always gets lots of discussion. And this class is very technical. 85% of you say you're technical. So if you really want to go deeper, I have put some optional videos out on tonight's tab on the class website on AI and machine learning and deep learning neural networks, and of course, backward propagation, which is the computer model of how it does it. They are fantastic. The guy that did these videos, it's incredible. It's really geeky and nerdy, but his graphics are phenomenal. So if you're really interested in this, it's optional. Go out there and you'll be able to learn even more about it. They're like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a piece. So tonight we're going to do our guest speaker up front. So I wanted to bring out that we're going to get the last of our 3 major suppliers, which is Amazon Web Services. And this company, I know we've talked about them so much during the class. They are a machine here. They literally run the majority of, a good part of, I should say, websites and a lot of what we know of the internet. Yet most people don't even know what they are. They don't even know who they are, what they do. They were founded in 2006. They literally power at least a third of the internet that we know of. And look at this revenue, 2020 revenue, $40 billion. That's just AWS, that's not Amazon. 29% growth, and that's a declining growth trend because it was at 33. Now they're about 12% of Amazon's full revenue. They have about 45% market share. And you can see from this graph by the size of the bubble, how big they are, how massive they are, how what a leader they are in this space. And they have something very interesting called backlog revenue, where they have contractual arrangements set in place for money that will be coming in. So this is why Wall Street absolutely loves this company. These are contracts that have an average remaining life of 3.2 years. So they have guaranteed revenue on the books, if you will, that will be coming in from this over time under contractual arrangements. So wow, what a great position to be in. And they are phenomenal here. They service over 1 million customers. They have over 600 government agencies worldwide that they work with, not just the United States, but obviously that's one of the biggest ones that sets the high standards, and government agencies around the world leverage those standards that they've established. And what an amazing thing they can do, because they keep getting so much more efficient at what they do. They have reduced their prices 67 times since they started launching their services in 2006. Matter of fact, they are so serious about getting you over to the cloud, and they know how hard it is. They have this thing called the Snowmobile, which is a big truck that will literally come up to your facility and with a big giant fiber optic hose, if you will, literally plug right into your data center, into a secured environment inside this truck, and literally drive your data back to their data center. Remember, some of these data sets are massive. You can't just, say, oh, let's just do a quick upload. They have these little things called snowballs that can have petabyte size storage within them themselves. They are super ruggedized. They can withstand a bomb. They can be thrown out of a helicopter in a desert. So you can imagine what client they're trying to support here. You can even set these things up and make a little mini data center connection if you need to be. They're completely secured. And so they are very serious about helping you and your company get over to the cloud, and they know it's tough. So those big companies, they have this extra piece. Now, we also mentioned earlier about how much power these data centers use, and it's massive. Not only do they want to help the environment, but it's to Amazon's benefit, as it is all the cloud providers, to try to reduce power consumption and not put such a big burden on the environment and the planet. So by 2018, their renewable unit energy usage was at 50%. I'm sure it's higher by then, so we'll ask Kamlesh when he comes on board. So let me introduce you to Kamlesh Talreja. So Kamlesh is the general manager for AWS Marketplace. His teams are responsible for launching features focused on large and small software ISVs, enabling AWS startups, enterprise, and data science customers to build applications in the cloud. Of course, AWS Marketplace is the innovative service that helps developers discover new third-party products. Think of it like their marketplace, if you will, monetize their own products on AWS. This is like their everything store. Kamlesh is passionate about this, and this is where he really wants to help the cloud and digital ecosystem come together. And he even does this in his own home. He's a 16-year Amazonian and has built and led products across Amazon's retail, digital, and cloud service business. Prior to AWS Marketplace, he led the mobile developer and app onboarding experience with Amazon Fire and the Android App Store, which he grew by over 10x in less than 3 years. In his previous roles, he's led connected device programs at Amazon Instant Video and launched innovative living room experiences with Instant Video, including the TiVo, Roku, Sony, and Panasonic TV platforms. And prior to joining Amazon, he built the internet's pioneering media streaming products at Real Networks. He completed his MS, Master's of Science in Computer Science from the University of California, San Diego, so another UC grad. His bachelor's in electronics from the University of Mumbai. So please help me welcome class Kamlesh, as I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's got a short presentation for us. So Kamlesh, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Absolutely.
Let me try setting up my screen quickly here.
No problem. And by the way, students, if you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead and just raise your virtual hand. And then when we get to that section, we'll be ready to go.
Cool. Is this clear now? The screen and everything?
We got it. Looks
Awesome. Thank you, John. Thank you again. Thank you to the class, and super excited to come talk to the class here. Again, my name is Kamlesh. I'm the general manager for AWS Marketplace. Thank you to John and UCLA for inviting me over for, I think, the second time to come speak to the class. Last time I was here speaking to the class was a great opportunity because I could escape from the winter of Seattle to come into Southern California and use that opportunity to bring my family over, and we had a good time visiting around to Palm Springs. I still remember those days. That's about 2 years back. But again, this is still good. I'm getting a chance to speak to you guys. So as John said, a fellow UC alum, and just a few miles down the road from you guys. So super excited to come and talk to the team. What I'll touch on today is about AWS, and John talked about the business success that AWS has had, and the kind of prevalence of AWS across the cloud, across the internet. What I'll talk about is what is driving that adoption. What are customers wanting from us? How does AWS address that challenge that customers have put forward to us? And then I'll move on to AWS Marketplace to talk a bit more about that in depth and detail, and share about what our space or what our place in the AWS universe is, and how we help customers. So I'll kick that off. And what are customers wanting from us, right? What do customers want? Primarily, if you talk to any customer, whether it's an enterprise like Barclays, or it's a born in the cloud company like Netflix, or many of the startups, or whether it's Airbnb or any of the folks who have built with us, they consistently, you see them talk about how can you help me focus on my core differentiators? How do you help me grow my revenue stream? And the way people generally grow the revenue stream is by focusing on what differentiates them, what are the unique features, and reducing the general or improving the operational and human efficiencies there. So that drives what is the innovation quality. So when you go talk to, for example, Intuit Mint, and they're like, okay, I don't want to worry about my mission in life. Mint's mission in life is to make sure their customers' financial lives are better. They don't need to worry about how do you manage a data center, how do I patch products, and they're looking to AWS to say, how do you help me focus on improving financial life for my customers and not having to worry about those. Or when you go talk to a Live Nation, they're like, okay, it takes me today 30 days to deploy new features. Would moving to the cloud help me speed that up? So when we are able to make that happen for them, the number of features that they have deployed goes up 5x. That helps them innovate at faster speed. And then these customers decide, as they want to migrate at the speed what is enabling them, right? And you find that AWS's migration tools, the broadest, deepest, most used tools, the most mature tools, they find those migration happens way faster and with much less drama. And eventually, all these customers are like, hey, I want to make sure that I've reduced my risk of operational issues, availability issues, of security issues. And that's where AWS comes in, like this holy four pillars, as you would say. How do we get them to move faster? Cost. Many customers come and say, the first time customers come to us, they even talk about cost. But very soon they figure out like cost may be one part, and it's a very important part for them, cost reduction. But the key part is how do they move faster? And that's where AWS comes in. And as you can see, because AWS is able to achieve these things for them, help a financial partner such as FINRA decide that, hey, 6 billion transactions per day, equity transactions, that actually we are able to find and do better patching for them, better ability for detecting abuse, fraud in these transactions than even that they could do on the on-prem data centers. That drives their adoption of AWS. So as you can see, a huge diversity of different customer base, right from financial customers such as Goldman Sachs, Capital One. They're all reinventing essentially their digital banking operations, whether it's Barclays, whether it's Intuit, FINRA, RBC, HSBC. You can even go to healthcare. Like, we talked about Moderna, which is building their COVID vaccine now, and they are using AWS to do a lot of their COVID analysis, and the coronavirus research that they're doing is based on AWS. Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Pfizer, all these folks who are actually helping us now in this world, AWS customers there. And you go manufacturing, whether you go hospitality, oil and gas, you name it. There is this wide range of customer base that comes to us. And why are these customers coming to us? What do they feel that AWS drives for them? And one of the biggest things they say, what is enabling them is the most broadest, most mature set of breadth of services that are available. Whether you look at basic compute, EC2, containers, serverless, we have that full range. Whether you look at storage, different types of storage, whether it's Glacier, whether it's S3, you look at databases, whether you want to go SQL databases to NoSQL databases, the full range of these products, machine learning, DevOps, even more solutions around management and governance so that they can do this in a compliant, secure way, and the best secure tools out there. And I can dig deeper into some of the things that we do in machine learning, for example, to show you the kind of range that we have. It goes right from special VM images or container images that can help you build or have all the right machine learning frameworks already built in, or can work on our machine learning optimized chipsets, to SageMaker, for example, which allows you to train, build, tune machine learning models and algorithms and share, to even higher level machine learning services such as video and image analytics, face analytics, labeling, speech transcription, face recognition, you name it. There's this huge gamut that we can provide. So as you go with these customers, like that's what they're looking for. Is like, okay, this maximum range helps me build faster. And the customers themselves are dealing with what is driving their notion, like the speed of transformation. One of the you look at some of the metrics on the S&P 500, right? The average tenure of a company in the S&P 500 has gone down from 33 years to 12 years, or will be there by 2027. What does that mean? Like every decade, you will have 50% of the S&P 500 companies churned out. So these companies, and especially as you go into the coronavirus now, the pandemic situation where the digital transformation is even faster, things that we didn't even imagine would be possible to do like 3 months back, 6 months back, a year back are now possible. People are changing the way they operate. These organizations have to, their biggest need is now, how do I increase my automation? How do I take my ideas to implementation very quickly? Like, believe me, that is the fundamental need of almost all companies out there. How do I take my ideas into execution the fastest? Those who are able to do that will survive very well. Those who are not, over time, they will churn out. And that's where AWS can help these companies do that. Moving from ideas to implementation, easily, quickly, securely, and frugally with AWS. So as you think about the most functionality that we provide, and often not recognized as important enough, the largest community of customers and partners. Any customer that comes to AWS, any partner that wants to build on AWS, if they run into a issue, hey, I don't know how to solve it, because we have the largest customer base, the largest partner base, means there is always a knowledge base of somebody who has solved that problem, who has run into that situation. So they have an easy way, or at least a well-documented way, or at least a well-known way, or something that they can go reach out to others for help to solve their problems. And most secure, most proven operational expertise. As Andy says, there is no compression algorithm for experience and operational expertise in that. Like, we have gone through the most number of challenges, we have gone through the most diversity of use cases, we have gone through, and we learned And we have built a platform, a service that can actually solve many of these in the most secure way possible. And that is a huge value add, and that helps. And true Amazon fashion, right? The fastest pace of innovation. Every year, our service count, the number of services we launch, increases 10, 20, 30 new services every year. And that pace is not going down. You will see more new services at re:Invent 2022, 2021. And customers want to align behind that kind of a cloud provider. And that is being recognized, right? I mean, this focus on the customer. And as in my early days of Amazon, like I used to be in many of these PRFAQ reviews, and many, I'm assuming you guys are aware of how we do press releases to define the working backwards or the definition of requirements. And we always used to have this empty chair in the room. And Jeff would say, hey, that's representing the customer who is not present in this room. So as we make those decisions on what we should build, make sure that you have the customer's thought in mind. What would they require? What are they looking for? So that extreme customer obsession, where we are we encourage and we like to go talk to customers, we learn from them, we use the customers' data points, what they are telling us, what they need to kind of define our roadmap. And this vision of the customer, this vision of satisfying the customer's need has, for the 10th consecutive year, has made us a cloud leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. The Gartner Magic Quadrant for infrastructure services, as you know, is one of the longest running Magic Quadrants. And AWS is one of the longest running leaders on that Magic Quadrant, 10 consecutive years. So that, we are all super proud. We love that. We love that our customers like it. And this space is only increasing. As you can see, the highest by far in terms of ability to execute, and the broadest and the furthest by far in our vision, completeness of vision. And this is, we are not slowing down, right? You're seeing the cloud itself is not slowing down. This is a 2016, 2017 study by Cisco at the Cisco Global Cloud Index. And as you can see, but by 2021, they believe 94% of all workloads and compute instances will be somewhere in the public cloud or the private cloud. And 73% of these workloads will be by far in the public cloud. So the biggest growth will be in the public cloud. And these numbers are thereabouts coming to be true. And you will also see that most customers, that wide adoption of SaaS software. So we are seeing this the same way AWS has set the bar, like, hey, you don't need to worry about infrastructure as a service. We will be your infrastructure provider, and you don't need to worry about managing your data center, deploying, patching your machines, patching your hosts. Even for other applications, customers saying, I don't want to do that. I have a data backup application. Can I use a SaaS provider versus having to deploy it, versus in the old days getting it on a CD, versus having to download, deploy to my VM, all of those, can I just provide me a SaaS service? So these are some of the emerging trends. And you can see the other trends are like where, how is the cloud transforming the enterprise application portfolio? And you're seeing step one, many of these enterprises, as they are moving to the cloud, they're deciding to build cloud native. So they are thinking, hey, already can I use serverless? Can I use containers? So I don't have to do a lift and shift as much as can I go build new? Can I use the observability platforms that the cloud provides? Can I use the logging approaches that the cloud provides? And these companies and these teams are finding out that speeding up their development processes. It's helping them move to on-prem. And as they're moving from on-prem, they're finding out that actually I just need to retire 20% of my software that doesn't have a cloud equivalent. It won't work. So you are seeing this churn going from on-prem, where some older software will be left back in the data center, and some software will actually have SaaS versions, or they will have modernized versions growing in the cloud. And we see that that model transforming their application portfolio. As most of the time when we go talk to our customers, they say they have anywhere between 100 and 500 different applications in their infrastructure. But there is about somewhere about 300 to 400 of these apps will be these long tail of apps that a small division is using or is very niche in terms of its use case. But there were somewhere in the middle is this 50, and most commonly somewhere between 18 to 25 apps that are enterprises have built their widest infrastructure. So marketplace, which is where we are coming in, as these enterprises and these customers are moving to the cloud, marketplace is enabling them to streamline their move or speed up their move or drive agility by enabling unique procurement motions for these software in this 50 and 500 motion. And our customers, they're like, I don't want to go through the same models and mechanisms I had for software early on, where I have to go worry about getting a CD for that software, or I have to negotiate perpetual contracts. They're saying, no. The cloud usage scales up and down, and I want more pay-as-you-go subscriptions. I want to be able to deploy these as SaaS software, and these should be all connected to my logging and monitoring instances that are existing. So provision, speed up my fulfillment, speed up my provisioning, make it pay as you go, and give me the best range of selection of software. And marketplace is helping do that and drive many of our customers' stories there in terms of agility and ability to develop applications quickly. So today, marketplace is more and more about 300,000 plus monthly active customers. Huge, humongous growth in the last 4 or 5 years that we have seen. 8,000 plus listings. So the maximum selection you can talk about out there. 1,600 plus ISVs. So everything you need in infrastructure space, in the business application space, marketplace products, you can come to marketplace, decide to have either use the website, decide what you want to procure, use it, deploy it, quickly start running. Or do a custom, if you're doing a bigger transaction, many of our customers do millions of dollars of transactions, multi-year licenses there, and they can decide what is the best price for them and still take it through marketplace, what we call the action of private offer. 50 plus categories. So, the key value props of marketplace, enabling their software deployment on demand, flexible consumption, and flexible pricing models. And at the same time, enabling that visibility, because once you procure through marketplace, you can use a marketplace console to say, okay, these are the entitlements that I have. These are the licenses I have procured. Oftentimes when we go to customers, they're saying, yeah, I really don't know which shadow IT team, which team in my company has bought which software. Huge problem for them. There's a lot of wastage. There's a lot of non-compliant procurement that is happening. Marketplace can help you provide the visibility, help you drive that. And all of it going through the simplified AWS bill. So you don't have to have multiple payment processing mechanisms all through the AWS bill. Oftentimes we have ways to provide similar pricing discounting models that we provide for AWS services. Similar to that, we provided for marketplace products also. So, same way we talked about the number of customers, here you're seeing the different types of categories and ISVs and software providers that are selling on marketplace. Again, a wide range. You have networking software from Cisco, from F5, Citrix, to business application software, to machine learning software. And how does this work? So as you can see, we are providing the right set of services, right? Marketplace is a two-sided marketplace where sellers, data providers can come in and they can provide and publish their products via our APIs that exist. And on the other hand, our customers and buyers can access these applications across any 24 of our standard regions out there, including GovCloud, including air gap regions. They can access through any of our service consoles. They can go to the marketplace website, discover, evaluate the products that they want to buy, see the pricing for it, negotiate custom terms with the ISVs, and then they're off to the races. So we are providing this digital curated catalog for our customers. And as you can see, this is our end-to-end, this is our flywheel, our end-to-end supply chain for software. So ISVs are publishing their apps via APIs to us. We are the curator store and catalog. Customers are able to discover that, test it, evaluate it, purchase it, use it. Once they start using it, their metering of the software is taken care of by us, automatically the software meters. We calculate the bill, send the customer the invoice, the customer pays. We decide what the ISV should get out of that. We disburse the payment to the ISV. So truly a quote to cash service out there. ISVs list, they get cash on the other side. And then from the marketplace angle, we are able to accommodate, like we run into customers of two types. You often have customers who want to go as fast as possible. You go to born in the cloud startups, or you want to go to a single developer shop. They're like, I'll go to the marketplace, I'll decide which operating system I need, which freeware OS do I need, or which paid software do I need, and I'll go deploy and I'm off to the races. So we call them the Lamborghini crowd. It's all about speed. It's all about software. Then you have folks who are looking for, while they want that speed, they also want governance, which we call the Volvo crowd. They're looking for safety. They are the CSOs, the architects, the finance, the legal in these enterprise companies. And they're looking to make sure that there is good controls and good governance mechanisms for it. And that's where our private marketplace, we have a feature called private marketplace, which allows you to define which products your customers can, your developer teams can use. And we also allow you to integrate with approval workflows or procurement system integrations. So this way we are helping our customers directly get access to many of these products. And then in 2017 and 18, we launched this customer private offers. We were finding that many of our enterprise customers saying, hey, I already have an existing ELA with my ISP, or I'm going to buy a multi-million-dollar transaction with them, or hundreds of thousands of dollars of transaction with them. And I want my custom pricing, my custom terms to be. So we allow now to ISVs and customers to negotiate this pricing and kind of bring in their procurement actions through the marketplace. Now enterprises also can use the consulting providers, right? Your channel partners, your resellers, who have been generally doing selling of software before. Now they can actually enable that through the marketplace while providing ability to have services added to it. We just at reInvent, we launched where we are enabling channel partners to say, not just can you sell software, but you can add value-added services like migrations, like support, premium support, installation services, assessment services on top, and we can let you take that through marketplace too. So this is the end-to-end picture of what AWS and AWS Marketplace can do. As you can see, trying to make sure that we are that two-sided marketplace between servers, sellers, and buyers, and that flywheel that moves it makes us even a bigger value add to our buyers. Cool. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kamlesh. We appreciate that. And I just want to kick off some questions. I'm going to open up to the audience as well. So students, if you have a question, please raise your virtual hand. On the marketplace, I'm a general user, whether I'm a startup or a multi-billion-dollar multinational. I can go to this marketplace and I can pick and choose a variety of things, from an operating system vendor to an application vendor to middleware vendors and things of that nature. Who does the billing there? Do I have to establish relationships with all of those individual companies, or do I just work within the Amazon ecosystem and Amazon's marketplace, Amazon Web Services, is doing that billing and managing all that for me? How does that work?
Yeah, so Amazon and Amazon Web Services will handle, the marketplace will handle all the billing, the metering and usage. The customer doesn't have to do any of those separate relationships. They will get their AWS invoice, which will have the marketplace bill also as part of it, which will say, hey, you bought software, you bought Cisco's load balancer solution, you used it for 55 hours at the rate of XYZ, this is what you owe them. And you send it as the customer sends it. Now we support 20 plus multiple different currencies. They can send it in the currency, their local currency, across for a global audience. So they pay it as they would their AWS bill. We figure out how much should go to the seller, and the seller gets their amount, and everybody goes home happy.
Excellent to hear. Perfect for startups for sure. And we've got a lot of folks in the audience that have their own company doing a startup or work for a multinational now that are going that. And given that so many of our students here work for large multinational firms, they tend to work at companies that use multi-cloud, and they are making executive decisions on who their company should go with. And it usually boils down to Microsoft's Azure platform, Google Cloud Platform, and of course, Amazon Web Services. And we're in a learning environment here. I'd love if you could to help us understand why customers choose Amazon Web Services, and maybe just compare and contrast these three big players in the marketplace very openly and honestly with us, and help us understand why customers come to you and maybe why they might go to one of your competitors for other services.
I'll definitely talk about why they come to us, and then you can understand why. So again, the same reasons I talked about earlier, right? The broadest, deepest level of services that we have. the most experience that we have, and our culture, where we drive innovation, where we drive that speed of execution, and extreme customer obsession, right? The idea is we are listening to our customers. Like I would tell you from I've been with Amazon 15 plus years now. And it still is a fun experience when I'm walking through an airport in the olden days in Bangalore in India, and they see me with my laptop, the Amazon sticker on it, as I removed the laptop and kept it like, oh, you work for Amazon. We love it. It helps us so much. And that level of customer obsession, our customers know that that's what Amazon is standing for. So that's why they're choosing us, right? And you can see that everything that I talked about, that's where they come to us. Oftentimes, what customers find in the multi-cloud environment, right? They end up if they choose a multi-cloud solution, they end up kind of building for the lowest common denominator. Because for many of you who are tech, right, you would remember the old days where we had to go build. People used to try to build applications for Windows and Linux at the same time. It never worked. We had various abstract solutions on it. You had MFC, you had various APIs that said that they could do the same thing, just build to those APIs. Very rarely did it actually build a functioning app that actually worked in both of those environments.
Flavors are always important there. I'll tell you what, we've already got quite a few hands up. So let me open it up to our students. So Michael Rizzo, you want to take the first question for us?
Sure. I saw on your slide that IT spend on software is 15 to 25%. I have to assume that's growing pretty fast as people move from having hardware on premise and networking and all the rest. Can you comment on that or kind of clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's definitely growing. I don't know that I don't have the latest numbers on me, like what is the CAGR there, but definitely you're right. Like more and more they're going towards software-defined networking, and you will continue seeing that accelerated path there for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sanjay, next question.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Kamlesh, for being here. My question is more around data. We all know how important data is in today's world around making decisions, and this class itself is all around big data. In the context of marketplace, do you see vendors also bringing the data context into that as syndicated vendors who can sell data? That's the first part of the question. And then the second part is, do you also see AWS or Amazon broadly getting into that space? Traditionally, it's been the IaaS, PaaS, and the SaaS components that Amazon has been involved in. Does Amazon see itself as also being a provider of information as a service vendor? Just curious what you think about it.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. So for example, like we have this idea called AWS Data Exchange, which is selling data. That's one of my peer teams that sells data through Marketplace. So we have data providers on Marketplace today. And one of the data providers on Marketplace is IMDb, which is an Amazon company. And over time, you will see more providers of data from within Amazon providing that too. Obviously, there's a lot of implications for what data we do. So we have to make sure that there's no PII and it's very compliant and there is no the health records, etc. So you have a huge gamut of providers too. You have health providers, you have financial data providers on Marketplace today. You have providers such as IMDb, and there are various rules and regulations that they have to apply to make sure that we are not leaking or we are not doing any PII data constructs out there. And this is a big business, by the way. We are super excited about the ADX business. We think this will grow very much big in 2021.
Got it. Thank you.
Sunita, next question.
Hi, Kamlesh. I had two questions actually. The first being, when do you encourage users to use the marketplace versus not? Like, when is it actually targeted? Like, what kind of customers do you target the marketplace for?
I would say they should use us always, right? I mean, there is the use cases. So what are the reasons that they may say, hey, marketplace is not the right solution for us? Today, we already support pay as you go. we support different types of deployment models, whether you want to deploy as a container, whether you want to deploy as an army, whether you want to deploy as a soft SaaS solution. All 3 or 4 of those, you name it, it's supported. You want to bring in a BYOL offering, like bring your own license where you already have an ELA with the customer. Great, you can bring that in too and get the ISV's BYOL army or machine image and get up and running. If you want to do a custom transaction where you want to say, okay, the price in marketplace on the public on the website is higher than what I would want. I am a big customer and I'm going to have 30,000 hosts of deployment here. I want a special price. Go at it. Go talk to the ISV, or we can enable, our sales teams can enable the connection between the ISV and the customer, and they can make a custom transaction with their custom pricing and again take it through marketplace. So there are very few use cases where they may choose not to go at all.
Okay, so even if it's not as complex a business, it would still be encouraged to use the marketplace.
Yeah, in fact, if it is not complex, even more you should use it, because the more simpler, like if you're a startup saying, hey, I want to be off and running, I just want to deploy Palo Alto's virtual firewall or firewall solution, the virtual appliance that they have. Do you really, for like 3 instances, right? 3 hosts that you want to deploy to, do you really want to kind of get into, going to Palo Alto's website and then they will tell you, you go through a whole chat process or a channel partner reaches out. Most of these startups are looking for speed. They're like, okay, I'm going to the marketplace. I know I can buy annual license and I can get off to the races. In fact, it is a much, much better use case for them.
Okay, and then my second question is, I think you mentioned something about billing non-compliance. How does Marketplace help with that? I'm just thinking about it from a privacy kind of perspective of customers as well. Right?
Sorry,
So
can you repeat the question about?
I may have misunderstood, but I thought you said something about billing non-compliance. I think the Marketplace is very good with that because it shows.
Oh, okay. It may not be about billing. What I was referring to is when you go, if you're going to many enterprises, they have various governance mechanisms. So they say, hey, you cannot just go buy any software out there and can start using it.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So for those customers, we are like, sure, what you can do is we have this concept of private marketplaces where they can decide what are the compliant, what are the blessed software and products that their dev teams can go use. So then their dev teams have access to, they cannot go deploy anything, but they have access to the ones that they can deploy.
Got it.
And we see that, a hugely important, like people are using that a lot, especially our bigger enterprise customers.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, Sadiq, next question over to you.
Hi, thank you, Professor. Hey, Kamlesh, thank you for your time today. Two questions, and one is more looking forward, right? If you look at your next, right, cloud computing has been tremendously disruptive, right? How businesses or services are done and implemented. What do you see the kind of in the 5-year horizon, the biggest challenges and investment areas for AWS, right? And a correlated question to that, if you can talk about, one of your slides about 75% of computing instances happen in the cloud, right? As there's a lot of computing in the edge, can you talk a little bit more about distributed computing and how AWS is looking at it as an opportunity to do more on the edge versus bringing everything in the cloud as cost starts mounting up? So can you discuss, this long-term theme, and then how does the computing instances
Yeah, I can definitely talk about what we are seeing in the cloud space, and hopefully it relates to maps to the investment that AWS will do, but not all. Right, what you're seeing though is again, containers continues to be one of the compute infrastructure for the future. Again, more and more of our usage, customers are migrating to containers at a phenomenal speed. So Kubernetes on AWS is taking off. Like, so you can see that as one of the big trends of the cloud. Serverless continues to be big, right? So more and more customers don't want to maintain their own servers. So you can see that coming up. More and more people building hooks into AWS services coming out. Machine learning, right? Machine learning, in my view, will be one of the more the kind of technologies that will change the way we even develop and program. And you can see it across the world, right? I mean, across the use cases that we see more and more in-depth usage of machine learning going on there. So that will be big. Now we are seeing a bigger trend also towards low code, no code kind of software, where we are trying to democratize application building. Right. And you see, like even today, like we have to, it's so much easier for me to kind of have a spreadsheet that I can have hooks into, that me and my family can go figure out our own model of how to work. Right. So that make it easy, Lambda with all of those serverless pieces. It's easier for my son even to go write code today, which says, okay, he set up this whole thing where they had a camera and the camera sent pictures back, and he had written a function that would detect when the picture came in, and and send the email over to my wife saying, hey, this is how your greenhouse is looking today. So that kind of accessibility and democratizing of coding, that is a big one. So you're seeing a lot of those trends spinning up there.
All right, Matthew, next question over to you.
Thank you.
Hi, I kind of had a question based on COVID and wondering, as a lot of companies have transitioned into more virtual workforces, is that something that Amazon will embrace kind of post-COVID, if you know? And then also, as far as like software service offerings on AWS, is that enabling workforces to work distributedly, priority going forwards?
Yeah, so your first question, yes, now we are, all of us, I'm sure you guys are too, I can see from all these screens, we're all working from home, right? So I think currently the policy in AWS is it will be based on when and we will see each and every locale actually have their own rules spin up as different vaccination rates and different environmental conditions in different areas. So that you will see a lot of the flexibility or deciding the return to work policy coming at the local level. Amazon so far has not made any changes in terms of the return to work policy, or whether it be fully remote, how remote would it be? So unfortunately, I cannot comment on that until we have that policy coming out. In terms of what we are seeing from a SaaS provider basis, extremely, you're right. Like, I mean, you look at where Amazon Chime or Amazon Connect is enabling multiple healthcare providers, multiple public sector companies or government agencies to kind of take their contact centers remote. That was a huge deal for them. Like, you had the likes of many of our biggest customers, many of our biggest public sector companies decide, okay, organizations that now suddenly I have to put all of these guys to go home. My contact center cannot operate from where it used to operate in the office. So you have all of these SaaS services like Amazon Chime, Amazon Connect, enabling that widespread ability to operate remotely. And we as a society, I think there's a lot of disruption that has happened, and there's a lot of unfortunate circumstances that have happened, and people who are impacted in a very negative way. So we have to be very well aware of it. But but generally, if you see, at least at the level of many of our tech companies, many of us working in our classes, etc., have been able to migrate to a remote work from home environment because of these SaaS services. So you are seeing that as one of the stories pop up.
Thank you.
And you guys are hosting the Zoom sessions on AWS, right? You guys had to scale it up amazingly quickly, didn't you?
Yeah. And whether you have Instacart, whether you have Zoom, Instacart, we had to scale up to suddenly supporting 250,000 shoppers for them, which was like double what they were supporting pre-pandemic. And their goal is to get to 500,000 shoppers. So you can see the kind of challenges we had, like where Zoom had to suddenly scale to 30 million sessions with us, where earlier they used to be less than the 5 million range.
No, definitely need to scale up. Crazy times we're in. Maninder, next question over to you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for being here, Kamlesh. My question is regarding the security. In one of your slides, you mentioned that 75% of the users would be migrating to public cloud computing. So, and as you can see, I mean, the cybersecurity concern along with it is growing quite a bit. I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about what is Amazon doing to make sure that cybersecurity is one of their top priorities, and how do you handle? Because typically, whenever there's a cybersecurity implementation or any standards, the hackers, they find a way to defeat that, and you hear that in the news quite a bit. I just wanted to see, like, if you can talk a little bit about how do you manage that.
Yeah, the AWS cloud, operational excellence, security is a number one goal, right? Security is the number one goal there. Huge amount of investment. We have one of the most secure. We are the secure cloud out there, most secure cloud out there, right? I mean, so we have a humongous amount of talent which is focused on making sure that we are not exposed in any which way. That we take care of our responsibilities as owners of the cloud security, right? And we have a bunch of services that customers can also use to enhance their application security. So in that sense, like we have a fully fledged Steve Schmidt as the CISO of our organization. They are very much involved in investing in and making sure that we are rock solid in our security there.
All right, Carlos, let's go over to you for the next question.
Hi, Kamlesh. Thanks for being here. I'm a fellow Trident, so happy to talk to you. I want to ask you about the marketplace and the partnership model that you have with IT providers, but also with ISVs. How is that different? And what's the message for channel partners in terms of how can they make? I guess how's the business model work for them on selling or reselling the marketplace solutions?
Yeah, so we have this concept of consulting partner private offers, right? So where a consulting partner, like a channel partner like Presidio, for instance, can be the seller of record, and they can work with the ISV with whatever discounting model they might have, and put their premium on top of it the way they would have done, and then sell it as part of the seller of record for them. It enables essentially ISVs also to with their various liability pieces, and enables them to onboard their whole channel ecosystem, whether it's 1-level channel, 2-level channel, 3-level channel. So consulting partner private offers enables that. And there's a pricing model piece there where essentially the fees are essentially the ISV has to deal with that, and the consulting partner doesn't have to worry about the fees on that model. They get their discounted rate that they would get directly from the ISVs. AWS takes care of the payment collection and then disbursing both to the ISV and to the channel partner their piece on top. So and at the same time, then you have consulting partners who want to sell services on top of the software. Like we find most of the time they want to bundle software and services. So marketplace also allows them. They can decide that they have a additional service that they have layered on top of the software being sold, and so they can sell those too. And we find that is a lot of our consulting partners essentially want to sell managed services for the ISV software. So that's a big deal for them.
Thank you.
All right, Dion, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Hello, Kamlesh. For being here tonight. I have a question. Who owns the metadata generated inside AWS?
Who owns, sorry, can you repeat the question, Dion?
Yes. Who owns the metadata generated inside AWS?
So all data that is owned by the customer generates the data, is owned by the customer itself. So if you are the customer building on AWS and you have created your storage data or anything related to that, that's your PII, that's your data that is owned by the customer itself. AWS doesn't look into it, doesn't own it, doesn't do anything with it.
Thank you.
No monetization there. That's what we wanted to double check, because we've had some questions come with that. Obviously, I have two quick things. I'll see if we can get them in real quick. One is about your AWS strategy for your regions and GovCloud and how you deal with China. And, so if I'm a multinational trying to go global or already global, or a startup going global, can you give us a little bit about your layout there that we need to understand, including your networking? Do you have a fiber network that we tap into when we go to AWS?
Yeah, so AWS has the widest breadth of regions available, 24 regions. And whether it's China, we have 2 regions in China, which are China focused. Then you have across the globe, whether it's Hong Kong, Singapore, like in Mumbai, and the Hyderabad one coming up. So there's a huge diversity of regions, by far bigger than any public cloud provider. And each of these regions has 3 or more AZs. And each of these AZs can be 1 or more data centers by itself. So the amount of redundancy that you get with having these AZs, that's unparalleled. You do not have any other cloud provider which can actually lay claim to having AZs that are located the way Amazon's AZs are, which are essentially different data providers increasing redundancy, or data centers increasing redundancy.
And does Amazon Web Services decide that? Do I dictate to you as a customer where I want the data? Or if I say it's in Germany, it's going to be a Germany data center, or do you know that and do that for me? How does that work?
So customers own where they are putting the data. So they can decide which region the data would reside in. They would move it across the way they would want to do. Amazon or AWS would not be handling your data, moving it across regions, unless told explicitly to copy a data from X region to Y region.
So if it's a Kubernetes setup and I say, just make it super scalable, you guys manage that in the background for me and know if Europe's peaking right now, you automatically move things around to the various European data centers, yes?
Yes. So if you decide, not automatically, like if you tell us, for example, I'll give you a feature. We have DynamoDB global tables. And you decide where your table should be global, you as a customer. You say, hey, these are the regions across which I want to replicate this data. And then we will take care of replication of that data across those regions. If you decide, hey, this data should stay only in this region, I'm in Germany, and this data only data sovereign to Germany, then we don't move it. It stays in Germany. So the customer tells us where they want to move the data because it is their data. They own the data.
Okay, I want to see if I can squeeze in another quick one. Tonight, we're going to talk about AI and machine learning and neural networks and deep learning. I want to ask you, because it seems to be the next big battle, what services AWS provides as far as not storing data, crunching data, but actually producing AI benefits, like actually producing answers for customers as a service. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we have a nice a wide set of machine learning based services. Whether it is at the topmost level, we have services such as Rekognition, which do image recognition, for example, Textract, which extract date text from like OCR based thing, or Lex, which is or any of these services, which is voice recognition, natural language processing. These are what we call high level services, and they are purpose built to those. So any or personalization, like you're a startup and you want to do a personalized recommendation engine, we have a service that allows you to do that. So that's at the topmost level. Then below that, you have services such as SageMaker, which is essentially a service that allows you to build, train, test machine learning models and algorithms and deploy them in a safe way. So think of them as where every data scientist doesn't have to do the same undifferentiated heavy lifting of building a model, deploying it, opening up an endpoint for inference, all of that muck taken care of by SageMaker for you.
So I could take a photo, upload it through an Amazon Web Service that is like photo understanding, and you could tell me
Rekognition,
in the photo.
AWS Rekognition, call it that. That's the service name.
Awesome. Good to hear. We're a little run on time, but I do want to get another question in from Daniel Pack. So Daniel, your question?
Yeah, quick question on that. It might be a little bit not pertaining to this, not as technical as many of the folks on here, but when you said that as a startup, if you had a software that you wanted to put out in the marketplace and you had professional services tied to that, when the customer comes and purchases your software and professional services, which part does AWS, what part does AWS take in terms of charging the client? So I was a little confused on, you said AWS kind of takes care of the invoicing part of it, but.
Yeah. So yes, AWS invoices the customer. Is your question just so does AWS Marketplace take a fee for providing that service? Is that your question?
I guess what is the invoicing part that AWS provides? Is it just to purchase the product and use the product on the servers of AWS? Is that just to the extent of the invoicing for AWS?
No, so there is purchase a product. Once a customer starts using it on AWS or deploys it on AWS, right? There are two charges that come out of it. One is the AWS infrastructure cost, which is, let's say you're running an EC2 instance, there will be a cost for that. And then there's the cost of running the software, which is the ISV is charging that. So
Right.
we will charge you on the AWS bill. We will send you a bill. We'll invoice you for both of those separately in that bill itself.
I see.
That's
I
the
see.
service we provide.
But the end customer is billed by like the startup. Am I just not making sense here?
No. The startup doesn't have to worry about. They don't need to build anything. They don't need to bill the customer. AWS will bill the customer on their behalf for their software. So if you're a startup, you don't need to worry about, hey, I need to build payment processing, invoicing software. Like you can worry about focusing on the core value that you are providing, the software, the service that you have built.
Gotcha. Just one last thing on that. If you have professional services, you can also bill your professional services through AWS?
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you.
Tell us how. That's an interesting comment because we have a lot of folks that
That
are
is
going
interesting.
into consulting or consulting already.
Yeah, so today we support we have two types of services products. I'll talk about professional services, which we launched at re:Invent. Today we support it's a fixed price kind of contract kind of thing, right? Where you would say, hey, you get X hours of support for Y dollars. So and you can request a private offer from your service provider. The customer can. The service provider says, okay, here's the private offer for you. They go and purchase that, and we charge them the bill either on work complete or at work start.
Can I ask you one more question? In
Yes.
terms of customer relationship management, do you provide metrics around that? Like CRM?
Yes, so we in some cases, so we have the AIQ product, which is another service product that we have, where we track the interaction between the service provider, who we call an expert, and actually the customer or the buyer. And yes, in that case, we track and we provide how quickly did the service provider respond to a question, did they complete the job, and what is the reviews and ratings for the service provider in that case.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I echo that, Kamlesh. I can't thank you enough for this. Amazon and Amazon Web Services in particular have been tremendous partners with UCLA Anderson. I think we sent 40 MBAs up to Seattle in various offices around the world that you have last year. You are, if not our top recruiter, you're one of the top 3, but I think you're the top now. So our partnership with you is tremendous. We sincerely appreciate it. And as you can tell by the robustness of the questions, our students appreciate your time. So
One of the best product managers on my team is a UCLA Anderson alum. So she was in this class too last year.
Love to hear it. Hopefully she went through this class as well. Well, thank you again so much. I really do appreciate it. I hope you can come back and talk to us again. Class, let's do this. Let's take a 5-minute break. Jessica, if you could take it out to break. And Kamlesh, again, thank you so much. We sure do.
Thank you, John. Take care.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break, everybody.
pants on. I got my shirt on, shoes on.
All right, we'll get everybody back in. Let me share out the desktop. All right, hopefully guest speaker was worthwhile for the time. I always enjoy hearing from them directly. They have so much going on. It's hard to cover all in one, but hopefully that was of value to you guys. So I tell you what, I'm gonna ask for a lot of interaction on this next section and maybe on the next one as well. So I'm going to encourage you to also use the chat feature. I am going back through that, so that's a great way to chime in, if you will, because there's a lot going on that we're going to ask for some discussion. So glad that everybody's with me. One of the things that you're going to have to worry about as a business leader are things like compliance, tax implications, legal implications associated with this. And there's no hard rule, but I want to walk you through some things. I want to get a discussion going on some of the usage of this, as well as the ethics of the use of data. So one is very key that we can go through easy, and that's taxing jurisdictions. And it's really not clear, but I want to give you some examples of that. Let's say I'm a Netflix customer, which I am, and I'm sure many of you are, and I live in Los Angeles. So according to Netflix, my billing account should be in Los Angeles. I should pay California state tax. I should pay California Los Angeles County tax, LA City tax, all of that kind of stuff. But what if I get on an airplane for a business trip and I go to Chicago? Remember those days? So I go to Chicago, I'm sitting in a hotel, and I want to watch a Netflix movie. Should I be paying Illinois state tax? Because I am consuming the product in Chicago, am I not? But yet my billing address is Los Angeles. But then again, in the internet world, there's a discussion about where the determination point is of the movement of the product. And of course, this is Netflix. They're hosted on Amazon Web Services. It might come from their data center in the Bay Area or in Portland or their Northern Virginia data center. And did the point of transaction of sale occur at the data center? That's where I made the request to send me the bits to watch the movie. And that's where the transaction occurred, from when it left Amazon, traveled across the network, of course, but when I made the consumption of the product. So should I pay there? Well, Chicago, got upset about this. Matter of fact, in July of 2015, they kind of used a little bit of workaround. They did an extension of a law that was already on the books, and they did an expansion of their entertainment and property lease tax, because I'm leasing property and I'm getting entertained by this consumption of a product, which is bits coming to me through the network over to my computer. And they want a 9% cut of that tax. So it's very difficult for Netflix to kind of understand this and know and track the IP address. What happens if I decide to get on a plane and go on holiday to Sydney, Australia? Different country, different location. Well, Australia had the same thing, and they actually in April 2015 passed something called the Netflix tax. It was Netflix Down Under. There are basically 11 million subscribers in a country of about 30 million, so about a third of the population, that is a Netflix subscriber. And there's a lot of homegrown streaming service providers down there, and they got upset. You can see here on this graph, Netflix is the biggest player in that marketplace, and they weren't paying taxes until this tax was introduced. Now, what happens if I fly over to London? Now, where is Netflix's headquarters in the EU? Anybody know offhand?
Dublin?
Where is it?
Is it Dublin?
They do have a data center in Dublin, but it's actually in Amsterdam. It used to be in Luxembourg. And I have to update the slide, but why was it in Luxembourg? Anybody know?
Taxes.
Taxes.
Gotta
Exactly.
be taxes.
Yeah, it's not because it's a business hub for the European Union. Now the UK's gone out of the European Union as of 35 days ago, 38 days ago. So it's had to switch. And then, well, is Dublin part of the UK? It's not in Northern Ireland. You got a lot of issues there. Matter of fact, in the UK, they had 940 million in UK, 940 million pounds of UK revenue, paid 3.2 million of UK tax. For the first probably 10 years, it was zero tax. The UK was getting nothing from all the consumption of Netflix, and the UK is one of their biggest overseas markets. Obviously, there's a big, huge English connection there for many of the things that they put on there. But there's lots of ways around this. What if I just did a VPN? Or what if my data center was in the Cayman Islands? Or what if I do all this through Bitcoin and it's all, Ethereum and digital currency and they don't know? Do you see how complicated this can get? It's quite bad. And I can't give any good, here's what you have to do in this situation. But I did find this amazing website. I put it here. It's also in the notes of this deck, which is on the course website that you can get. That is the best one I found that gives you state by state, county by county, region by region for taxing purposes. Now, hopefully you've got a lawyer on staff that can help you figure this out in a multinational. But if you're doing a startup, and you're going for a global marketplace, could be a very big concern for you. This is a great place to start with this website. So I've got that information out there. The thing as an executive, you really want to understand who's accountable, who is going to be held accountable here. Is it the cloud provider, say Amazon Web Services, if you're hosting it on Amazon, or is it the company that puts the data on the cloud service provider, say like a department store like Target? Who is the one that has this responsibility? Any ideas? I'll take anybody. We don't know?
Responsible for tax or?
If anything goes wrong here, anything's responsible for charging tax, anything, let's say you're pushing out something that's illegal in a certain market, which is very much the case in certain markets. Who's responsible? Who's accountable?
The company.
Gotta be the company.
Yeah, for the most part, I would say it is the company. You got to think about this responsibility. And this is where we start becoming a legal class. And I'd push you to some of our business legal classes that are out there. We have 3, I believe, at Anderson. But one is how the definition is defined between the data controller and the data processor. Because as a company that goes to a cloud service provider and tells them to do things and make things happen, you're paying them for that service. You're the one that should be in control of that data. The cloud provider, Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, they're just the dumb performer. They're just doing what you say. And that distinction is very, very critical for you to understand as a business leader, because you're liable for the data objects, data subjects that are there. So remember, in an international marketplace, some things that are offered in one market might be illegal in another. And so you've got to understand this, and this should actually be written into the contract as well about the various data protections that need to be in there for contractual arrangements about what they do. So I bring this up because now that we understand Kubernetes, remember Kubernetes kind of does things in the background for you and helps you out. You have to predefine, and that's why I wanted to ask that of Kamlesh earlier, is if you say, make this happen as the best I can in these marketplaces, you determine where the ecosystem footprint is for Kubernetes to operate within. So you're still responsible. You've got to take the understanding of where Kubernetes could move or shift workloads within the footprint that you gave them access to. So you still have to define it. So there's still a little murky in the legal respect for it, but there are some things that you need to be aware of and kind of keep an eye on. So let me give you a couple of things here that you need to be sure of. One thing that we learned, especially in the early days, because a lot of these cloud service providers weren't the big guys that we have today, and many were going bankrupt. They'd run out of money. The VC backing didn't happen. So you want to make sure in the contract you sign with your cloud service provider who owns the data. And Dion, I know you were asking about metadata being generated by the creation of that data. Of course, Amazon it's kind of got a little bit of a history, you know, like, oh, are they looking into my data? You know, because suddenly they're offering a service that I used to offer because they know, because they're seeing my metadata, they're seeing how much traffic and access I have. You know, and that's why I wanted to make sure that question came out. You are the one that's supposed to own that data. You've got to make sure that's stipulated in the contract. And if something were to occur, like there was a bankruptcy, you've got to put something in the contract that says, hey, if you declare bankruptcy, you have to give me notice, at least 7-day warning notice that you're going to go bankrupt, so I can get in there before the doors are padlocked by the bankruptcy judge, and I can't get access to my data again. And this was happening to a lot of companies, and they would actually lose access to their assets, their own data assets. Or if you are a retailer and you went with a cloud company that happened to sell to Amazon, and Amazon is a giant retailer as well, e-commerce retailer, maybe you don't want them to be your hoster. So you put in a clause there on succession liability, should you ever sell in the future. Again, something you're not thinking about when you first sign the contract, but something you need to be aware of. The other thing you want to be cognizant about is how your provider will respond to a subpoena. Most of the large firms, and I'll let you understand which three we are mainly been talking about, would get a knock on the door from the police, and they say, you know, the police said they're big, mean people. They came in and they wanted this data, so we just gave it to them. Well, that's not supposed to happen. Under the Stored Communications Act, you are the owner of that data. It may reside in their data center, but you're the one that is supposed to be the one that actually determines how you respond to a subpoena. Hang on just one second. I want to do one more thing here. Is that image clear for you now? Because I realized I was sharing some of my own desktop. I apologize about that. So you want to be able to understand that. Well, the only way you can make sure how they're going to react to a subpoena is if you have it in writing. And they're supposed to give you like 10 to 14 days to respond to the court that is asking for your data. And this has happened. It's happened more than you think, especially with Twitter and Facebook and some of the others. Do they have a process behind which they disclose information that is rightfully yours? It just happens to reside in their data center. And the authorities kind of know this, especially in some of our overseas markets. They just go straight to the people that had the data and bypass you. And so you got to be aware of that. The other thing you want to think about is guaranteed uptimes. If you are a big Vegas resort, Saturday nights, when your casinos are packed and your bars are packed and your nightclubs are packed, is not when you want a backup to occur in the data center of your hosting provider. And that's when most of them occur, Saturday night at 2 in the morning. If you know, so there's a reduction of processing power during that time. Understand when they're scheduled, understand if there's a guarantee of uptime. And if there's a downtime and I lose business, if you go down on a Saturday night and I can't bill the gin and tonics that are being billed at the bar because the system's down, I lose money on that. Do you pay for that loss of business? That has to be in your contract. One of the things you're going to want to think about is getting cyber risk insurance. Most of the big providers, all the big three that we're talking about, offer this. They should give you that option to opt in. There are these certifications. I won't go into the detail here, but they're basically like international standards, like an accounting servicing body, like an audit body. As long as they meet those standards, you should be pretty good. But make sure that your legal team is aware of it and they know where to go from there. Okay. So a couple of things you don't want to be aware of as an executive. Now, one of the other things you want to think about is privacy and security and what you do. Is no hard and fast rule. So do you guys remember the San Bernardino shooter that had an iPhone and the FBI was begging Apple to unlock the iPhone? Do you guys remember that? What do you think they should have done? By the way, Apple was very adamant about this, that they were not going to unlock that phone. I want you to unmute your mics here and give me some feedback. Should Apple have unlocked that phone? What do you guys think? Was it the right thing to do? Is it the right thing to ask? Whose data is it? Apple's, or is it the shooters, or should they do it without a warrant? How should that work? I don't see hands, but I'll take open mic then.
Professor, I think the main concern from what I recall was that the FBI wanted a back key, right? Just not just for that iPhone, but for the next one and the one after that, right? So it wasn't really about just a terrorist case, which I think a lot of people could justify as Americans that maybe was potentially justifiable, right, given the circumstances. But I think it was a bigger picture about, well, you start here and you've seen how, the government can get into a lot more ecosystem. This is one that they're not in yet. There's a lot of pros and cons for that.
Well, should they have put a back door in?
I personally, I don't know. I'm not qualified to make that. There's a part of me that says no, but then if everybody doesn't do it, and then who's going to protect us at some point whenever we need to?
All right. Well, you're Tim Cook, so this is your decision. You got to determine. I'd like to get some other viewpoints on this. Sunita?
I just think that if it has to do with legal or health related issues, then that is something that should be done, taken by the company to go ahead with that decision. But if it's something for any other use, like giving that information to other companies for some other reason, then not. But again, that's, as a user, I would be okay if for example, if I were dying and I don't have access to my phone and someone else has to do it for me, I'd be okay with that. I would be okay with Apple doing that.
Okay, but what about a government coming and saying to your provider, by the way, are you an Android user, iPhone user?
iPhone user.
You have an iPhone. Okay, so you're tied into this ecosystem, and some government, maybe the Singaporean government, goes to Cupertino and says, here, unlock our phone. We demand it. How does that make you feel?
We're talking about Singapore, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I have hardly any say in that. But I would think that, again, legal reasons, I would say yes. But if they are trying to get access to others through my phone, then no. It's a very fine line that I would draw.
All right, Eyal, I'd love to hear the Israeli viewpoint. Eyal, you're on mute. We'd love to hear what you're saying, but you're on mute.
Okay. Now I'm not on mute, I guess. Representing the country that brought the company that helped the FBI hack that phone, Celebrite. I think it's a very dangerous, slippery slope. I mean, this actually happened in Israel a few months ago when the Israeli government asked the cellular companies to open access to track all the citizens in Israel to make sure they are quarantining themselves just to try to control the pandemic. And it was approved for a few weeks, and it was a mayhem in Israel because you don't know what the government would do with that information, and you can't control it. And once you give the government access to track you, to track your location, to track messages that you get, it's a very dangerous road to take. So I think it's a slippery slope that you shouldn't allow.
Okay, so even though Israel has done a fantastic job of getting better control of the virus, they've got more vaccinations out there, your belief is that the government should not have forced that on every Israeli citizen to track every Israeli mobile phone user.
I think it's very dangerous because Israel situation right now with the government is a little tricky. And if you give the government access to that data, they can use it for different things. So you don't want that. You don't want to let the government access messages that goes between people in Israel. So yeah, they can just use it for anything they want. And if the FBI asks Apple to do that, and Apple does that, everyone is exposed. FBI can ask for any data from any iPhone, and I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay, Lauren?
So I have like a mixed opinion, I would say. I actually want to preface this. I'm actually currently in Taiwan, where I was handed a government phone to, because I was I'm quarantined for 2 weeks, and they actually force you to quarantine, and actually like it's just really strict here, right? Like they make you get a SIM card. If you don't get a SIM card, they're like, here's a government issue phone. We're gonna call you every day and track you to make sure you're not moving. I'm actually like kind of okay with that because I think it's kind of like for the greater good. And like to that point, this is why America has pretty much screwed up handling COVID, is we don't have anything in place, and we're so about like, I want freedom from the government. I think that, you know, per most things in America, maybe that what we need to do is to create a process, right? Like I do think that there is something to be said. Like the same reason you can't just go to a movie theater and shout fire is the same reason, like, you know, like that's freedom of speech. Yes, and it's not just freedom of speech. You have to understand that it has implications to other people. So I do think there needs to be a process put in place. I do think the FBI, the way they did it, which is like, hey, Apple, we have no process in place. Do this for us now. I don't think that was right because it's like that didn't have a due process. With that being said, it's like that was a good kind of, I think, like, hey, here's a sign. Maybe we should do something about that, right? Maybe we should have a process in place where government can access information given, you know, A, B, C, D is met, right? Like given that this is an actual threat, this is actually gonna bring more harm than good to people. But that's just my own personal opinion. I am American, and I, you know, do understand we want our freedom, but I'm also seeing the implications of how much we have valued our freedom, like to the point that people don't even freaking wear masks, you know, like, oh, I need my personal freedom. I don't want to be controlled. It's become, in my opinion, to an outrageous kind of outrageous side. And I don't want to be on the other side where the government's controlling me. Like I'm not here like advocating for communist China, but you know, there's a really good middle ground where there has to be.
If you are Tim Cook in this situation and you're getting a lot of heat and a lot of pressure at the time of what's been deemed a terrorist action in your home state of California, you are saying, no, Tim should not unlock the phone for the FBI and take whatever political or pressure he's getting and stick to his guns on that, correct?
Yeah, I think he should stick to his guns, but use it as a very good opportunity point to be like, no, because there is no process and there is a sense of privacy. And and this is a bad precedent to set when we haven't, you know, we haven't told our customers, right? Like we haven't yet said to our customers, this is what's going to happen, right? This is why we get a bunch of 100-page, like, do you consent to all these things? You know, it's like, but I think it's a very good opportunity to be like, but in the future, since this has been an issue and we see a bigger problem, how do we address this for the future? So I think that.
Be glad you're not Israeli, because obviously that was done for you whether you wanted to or not. And yes, everybody reads those 100 pages, don't they? Let's talk to someone that could help us with that 100 pages. Richard, our Apple guy.
Yeah, I am not involved in the privacy conversations, but so to sort of respond to Lauren's, the idea, not Lauren's idea, the general idea of like, okay, let's say there's sort of a due process, like some sort of warrant situation, which I'm definitely uncomfortable with. I think it is a slippery slope. And like, shout out to Michael Rizzo in the chat. I think he sort of put it on the tee, but something I was thinking about was if I'm
let's say you're Tim Cook, this is your decision as CEO. What do you do?
No, absolutely not. It's an erosion of a fundamental right to privacy. And if I'm a criminal and I'm aware that there is a legitimate backdoor way for a government to get into phones, I'm going to do everything I can to circumvent that. And so that you're therefore just eroding the privacy of sort of law-abiding citizens.
All right. Great conversation. Let me get at least one more in. Dylan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I pretty much was going to say something similar to what Michael mentioned, because I think our government has a history of like, you know, if you give an inch, they're going to take a mile, whether or not you like it or not. And what's been more interesting to me, I think, is since this has happened, Apple has pretty much used it almost as a differentiation factor, especially with all of their privacy ads. So to them, it's like, you know, them sticking to their guns allowed them to differentiate from the Facebook, from the Google, you know, what have it, where privacy is essentially at the center of what Apple does.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
And there was a key other executive that was at the very opposite end of Tim Cook at this time, and that was the BlackBerry CEO, was saying, how dare you not open this for the government? You absolutely should do this. Why do you think that CEO was so adamant about it? Anybody?
Huge government contracts.
You better believe it. The president of the United States carries BlackBerry.
That's
The
right.
capabilities for security level and, openness through a government, the government is their last biggest customer. I mean, who's carrying a BlackBerry anymore, right? And and Dylan, you're absolutely correct. Apple actually did a pivot on this and used this to their advantage. They said, how should we make this to our advantage? And they have become privacy advocates. And we're seeing that battle happen now between Facebook and Apple without question. By the way, this comes from the Pew Center, and I kind of trust them. They seem to be very down the middle of the road, not leaning either way. They did a study about this. And 51% of the people thought they should unlock the iPhone. They said, absolutely. Of course, there were some that didn't. And when they broke that further down by age, it's interesting. Younger people said, no, they should not. Older people said, yes, they should. You go further down, postgraduate was more no. High school was more yes. And then you got into some graduate work and said more no. Republican, Democrat, Independent. Republicans, Democrats kind of very similar, nothing big deal. Independents were more towards the no, don't unlock it. But when you break that down further to independents that leaned Republican, by far a greater majority said yes, unlock it. And the independents that leaned Democrat, a far majority by far said yes, no, you should not unlock it. And then they actually went to Apple iPhone users themselves. Okay, like this is your company. You have bought into their ecosystem. You own an iPhone, and there was a mix there, but most were saying yes in general. But when you started breaking down the numbers, some were saying no, you should not. It's a very unusual, tricky slope here. And what's really crazy here is that Apple has the backup system goes to the iCloud. The government actually screwed up the password so many times they erased the iCloud backup. So even if they could get that data out, it automatically erased, which was something that the government was denying at the time, and then it discovered that they did it. So can you trust the government officials or the police officers or the FBI or whoever was involved in? By the way, yeah, you're right. A Israeli company actually did break into it. So how does that make you feel as an iPhone user? It can still be broken into. This is, as a business leader, you're going to have to really deal and understand with how privacy occurs for information and the data assets that you hold for your customers. So I'm a big Dropbox user. Of course, we use Box here at UCLA. But have you ever gone out to Dropbox or Box and you say, okay, that's an old thing, I want to delete it. And then you go, oh, wait a minute, I didn't mean to delete that. I want it back. And it comes back. And you're like, well, I thought I deleted that. So who has that data? What is the length of time? Because they really don't state in their usage terms how long they keep your data. Like, I thought I deleted that. That was something I absolutely did not want out there. And in the service terms and how many people read through those directions, go through that. Even in our own Google site, where you guys signed up for your Teams, I get these error messages that are coming up that tells me how long the data is going to stay out there even after deleted. And you've got to figure out, like, what does that mean? What standard are you going to set for your customers for how long you keep data? Or do you keep it forever, which a lot of companies are? And then you start adding that in with different markets, specifically in Europe. Do you do different things in different markets? And by the way, that's a business management decision, because when you do that, that means you have two sets of standards, two sets of code, two ways that your employees have to deal and work with different things. And the biggest place you see that is in the EU, because we have GDPR, which is far more privacy and consumer oriented than the more freewheeling North American systems, which is probably even more restricted than, say, some of the systems in Asia, where some of the constituents in that marketplace are like, yeah, they have our data. I know, it doesn't matter. I really don't care. Just give me better, faster services. And you have this weird dichotomy across the globe of what's considered normal. So you guys have got to really think about that, because how you use that data, it's an ethical call. So I had you guys watch this OkCupid video. Did everybody watch that video? I'd love to hear what you think about it, because here's a company that has very detailed data and information about their customers. And they are doing things with that data. And I see some hands, that's perfect. Paul Byers, your comments on that video. What'd you think about that? You put your
I guess
hand up.
one thing that surprised me when he was talking about all the things he found out about people in aggregate, about their racial opinions and things like that, is there was no discussion on his part about how far he could lean into that, like how he could use that. Because there comes a point which if your algorithms use that perception to change what people see, you might be reinforcing that. And what are the ethical implications if you're reinforcing, racist perceptions or sexist perceptions or things like that, or ageism? And he didn't really address that other than to look at it as kind of a fascinating science project. But they're actually doing things. So it's not just like a science project. They have agency, and they're using that data to make decisions on what people see. And it didn't really talk about that much.
Yeah, he's got he is using that data. He is. Thank you for having women chime in here, which I'd love to have more. Julia, your thoughts. What'd you think of that video?
I thought the video, I had seen some of this floating around before, but I think the video is interesting because it is more accurate than a lot of polls that you can take about people's stances on what they really think and how they really behave. And I think it's certainly not, it's unfortunately not that surprising to me, but I think that having, oh, sorry, I didn't realize my video was off. But I think that having that information out there is perhaps more important, especially because it's an aggregate, to help people be more aware of the fact that they might hold a belief and then not act in accordance with that belief. So while the algorithms could be reinforcing that, that's a great point. I think it also gives people more information to sort of question themselves and hopefully question their own behaviors. Especially like
bringing that back to the users. He was seeing that trend, but was he bringing that back to the consumers of his service?
Well, I don't think it's really going to be effective to email someone and say, hey, you say that you're okay with interracial dating, but you only pursue people of your own race. I don't think that's going to be a particularly effective tactic, and it would probably be invasive. So I think the only way is to aggregate the data and then share it more broadly in a way that people who are curious and perhaps want to think about what OkCupid can tell from the way people behave is probably a more productive way to have that conversation.
By the way, I want to share with the class, this is probably one of the last nights that we'll have a deep discussion. It's a great place to get participation points. It's your thoughts and opinions, no right or wrong answer. If you need participation points, and some of you do, this is a great time to get it. Alfonso?
Yeah, so I'm a customer of 23andMe, and that's a bit scary because, well, one, I'm wondering what cloud is that sitting on? And two, that's like one of the most sensitive pieces of information about yourself that can be out there. But in reference to this OkCupid stuff, I think it's kind of like a brave new world. Like there's going to be increasing services like this that if you want to keep a tight knit on the data of yours that gets out there, you're just going to miss out on. And I think you just have to make a decision. Is this a service that's going to bring enough value that I'll take the risk? Or do I want to keep everything tight and miss out on it?
Okay, that's a consumer point of view. We're talking about the CEO of OkCupid, talking about how executives make decisions on how they use this data. So this gentleman sees this data, he understands this data, its good and bad sides, and he does stuff with that data. Hopefully in the benefit of the service for his customers. Otherwise, he's going to lose customers. But he's curating that data. Kaylin, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I just thought it was interesting, like the way that he actually collected the data, he asked questions that were open-ended that would lead respondents to go in like a rabbit hole and like,
You want to find your perfect mate there on OkCupid. You're going to lay it all out there.
yeah, that was a good, I thought that was a really good way to actually get some truthful data. But I also was curious to how he went about filtering and cleaning that data, since it was a bunch of text and string words. Was he using like keywords or something?
Okay, so yes, he was. Yes, he had the data. He is taking your information and providing you a curated view of who you see, who you could date, who you interact with on that site. Should he be doing that?
I think he's definitely reinforcing like, you know, kind of what you think that you like, and maybe they should be using something more.
Okay, you're him. It's your decision. Yes or no? Should you do that work?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. That's what I want to hear. Richard.
I felt particularly compelled to comment because I met my now wife via OkCupid, and so I do think that to you know, the point earlier that as the CEO, the business model of OkCupid is to say, hey, like our differentiator. And I remember in strategy a year ago, we had a case about OkCupid. Their differentiator against sort of lower market dating sites was the data that they were taking in, was the analysis they were providing, and was the matching they were building off of that data, that they're able to be accurate at an individual level because of the amount of data they use in aggregate. And so as a CEO, I think the fact that you're just like pushing that story out is helping to sort of build the brand and prove why, like what makes OkCupid sort of, you know, a differentiated and premium service in that marketplace.
So we know that you're married now, you're not using these services, but when you were, did you use like eHarmony or any of the others? And could you tell it like what made OkCupid so much better to find your perfect mate?
Honestly, I did online dating in general for about maybe a month. So it was like OkCupid and Tinder. I went on like 2 dates through, you know, first dates through Tinder, and a first date through OkCupid with my now wife, and that was, you know, 5 years ago. So I don't have a ton of online dating experience.
All right,
it worked out well for me.
Now that you've seen that video, you know that she might have been kind of picked for you because the view of who you saw on there was created for you. That viewer was curated.
Yeah, I mean, it literally, I remember it, when you get your list, it gives you like 98%, you know, it says it presents a match, a percent match. At least it did then. And so it was very upfront. And like from a product manager standpoint, why are you going to show people, oh, here's your 32% match? Like, I'm never going to go on a date with someone who,
even though that person may be perfect for you, but the algorithm said she's only 32%.
I have faith in the algorithm, I guess.
All right. All right, good to hear.
I better hope I do. I'm married to it now.
Let's hope it lasts forever. Royden,
I'll let you know.
Comments.
Yeah, I'm another one of those. I met my wife on eHarmony, and there was a whole, you know, matching process and that stuff. I mean, I believe that, you know, it is helpful for these companies to provide us with some sort of system that goes through and sorts all the data. There's a lot of people out there, and I guess for a thing like dating, you, especially if you're a busy person, you don't have the time yourself to go through and sift through all the profiles. So I do think that it's good, useful for them to, you know, be trying to manipulate the data in this way to help people out. The question that I was having was, are we at a point, or will we get to a point that, do we actually need humans to be the ones looking at this aggregate data? Or is it possible to just, you know, we put all of our data into a system and no one really has to know, you know, what these trends are, and still come out with an efficient algorithm to do the matching process?
Well, who writes that matching algorithm? Who decides who you meet or see on a site?
Well, the humans as well, but I mean from the sense of, you know, do you need to know all these like trends about, oh, this race prefers that and this race prefers that, as opposed to, hey, I put this particular algorithm out there and it seems to be effectively matching people 90% of the time. Is there a way to sort of just deal with the results of the data and generate an algorithm through that without having to know all of the personal or private information?
Well, you share a lot of private information on the site. That's why I picked this particular area, because people share some really, they share everything. You wouldn't do this for like a shopping site or something, but you definitely do it here. It's interesting.
I'm good to give private information to the machine, I guess, because it's not really judging me or anything, but I don't know about
You know,
humans.
the machine is accessed by people and CEOs. Many people are having a pushback against our friends at Facebook because they know so much about us and they're using that data, maybe not in the most appropriate ways, but we're all still on Facebook. Is that okay? Ryan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have an answer to the question about Facebook, but I mean, I've used a lot of these different sites before, and frankly, they can use my data for dating however they want, I would say. I mean, ultimately, I'm on these services to find people to date. And if they're going to do some of the work for me to filter out people that they think I'm going to like, then I would prefer that they do that. And OkCupid isn't the only service out there. So, you know, you can get a different experience somewhere else. And if you don't want curated matches and you don't want your data to be used, then you should be using traditional dating, or not, you should be, you know, go to the store and try to pick up on whoever you're interested in. And don't have a software help you, or don't have like a platform help you do that if you're worried about your data being used in, I guess, an inappropriate way. So I just overall consider it to be a much more efficient way of making connections with people. And, you know, I'm going to answer questions. If I get questions, I'm going to answer them honestly. And I'll share the information that I feel comfortable sharing with in an attempt to, you know, make better matches with people that I want to match with.
Okay, well then I want you to understand, as you are an executive at a company that has data about your customers, which you will, and I'll go to one more question with Andy in just a minute, that you have a responsibility to utilize that data appropriately, ethically, to be able to maybe see trends of maybe not what's ideal, but to utilize and curate a view, especially in something like this, that keeps your customers happy. As we heard, you know, best product manager, like, hey, the product works. It's doing what my consumers want. That's great. But you've also got to balance that out with, are you being discriminatory, indirectly or directly, but usually it's indirectly, in an algorithm that only lets someone see what you're giving them access to see. You know, that weird thing about, you know, the hottest girl on the page gets the most hits, or, you know, this creepy guy factor where they all like really like 21-year-olds, even if they're 50. It's like, you know, it's, you know that information. Like, do you feed that, or do you try to fix it, or do you find something in the middle? Let's go to the last comment with Andy. Andy, you had a comment?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to say that I think, you know, in the case of something like OkCupid, when you're making the choice to sign up for it, I think you have to go in eyes wide open. I think there's another piece of this about consumers not really understanding the scope and magnitude of the data that's being kind of captured about them, and the risk vulnerabilities that exist around them. And so I think, you know, finding a way to, assuming that consumers can be kind of educated enough to understand what they're getting themselves into, and then after that they make this.
Do consumers really know what they're getting into? Do they read all the things, the terms and conditions?
Well, yeah, I guess that's the problem. Sunita and I were actually talking about that previously, just around, you know, who's going to offer that. That was her point. Who's going to offer that unbiased view?
Yeah, I appreciate the comment. I mean, I know a lot of you are looking at this as a consumer. I want you to look at it as an executive owning this data. You know, it's how you use this, and there's an ethical use of this data. Like, how do you use this? How do you not? I want to go through a couple things here with you to help you understand, because you're going to give direction to your teams on how to go mine data. And there are different types of data mining that you need to be aware of. So number one, you can kind of cover yourself, but number two, so you understand what you're being asked to do with your data, well, I should say what you're mandating to your teams to go do with the data, so you can understand it. Now, the first one I want to talk to you about is classes. And this is where you do pre-planned groups. Hopefully that's not discriminatory. Hopefully that is all above board and normal, because you predefine them. You don't know what you're going to find in there. But you're hopefully looking for some kind of possible validation that you pre-created from some aggregated group. But you're not saying, give me this type of thing. You're saying, go determine this from a predefined group. So that's called classes. The other is clusters. And this is where you look for coherent relationships. And it's clusters of data. You don't know quite what you're going to find out there, but you cluster them together. And I'll talk a little about this more in machine learning. But it usually does not include PII, personally identifiable information. So that's another out. You can say, hey, I was just looking for a cluster. This is the data that came out of that, which generated it. I was just looking for relationships. The other is associations, and that's where you use to identify connections. This is used heavily in social media graphs and the mapping grid that you do for influencers and things of this nature. So you put out there, I'm just looking for the associations. You're not trying to dictate some particular item there. Another is these sequential patterns, where you are looking for behavioral patterns and inclinations. This is heavily used in suggestive selling. It's a little bit creepy when you go to a site and you buy something and then they say, hey, you might like this and this and this, and you really do. But they're looking for these patterns. It's not like they're trying to peg you into a certain area. They're just doing it by pattern recognition, by sequential pattern lookage. So hopefully your customers don't get eked out by being a little too nosy on what they do. Another is classification, and this is used for potential next actions. If you do millions of transactions and you expect to see certain things and you don't, you're like, wait a minute, we expected that and we didn't see that here. Maybe something screwed up. Maybe you forgot something. Maybe, so you start giving them suggested action. This is where machine learning comes in, because the more data you have and the more transactions you see, you'll actually start determining this. Not that we're trying to mandate something for you or dictate something to you, but this is what we would expect to see based on all the classification that we saw in the past. There we go, sorry. It's a little bit slow. Another one is prediction, and that's using the studies between autonomous and non-autonomous variables. These are predictive analysis that you can do. And of course, this is kind of what was happening at OkCupid, because their CEO is basically curating the view. They're basically determining who and what you see and how much of it you see. So they're trying to do predictive analysis there. And then of course, the one we're probably all most familiar with as MBA students is that's decision trees, where one particular decision can have multiple choices and multiple answers in there. You go down a typical decision tree. As long as you've defined these things out for how you do data mining, and it's done ethically within your teams. And remember, your teams are going to have to kind of make these calls. You want to be able to set that as a standard, because you'll go to your team and say, hey, can we do this? And technically, a lot of times they'll say, yeah, we can do this. And then you have to say, well, legally, can we do it? Well, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And then you also want to ask, well, should we do it? I mean, does this, legally we could, and technically we could, but is this what we want to do? So there's some ethical position there in the middle. It's a call you make. And I can't stress to you enough, this is a very strong passion of mine about ethics and doing the right thing, not necessarily the thing that you can do, but I hate it. I should hate to see a UCLA Anderson graduate, and it's happened before, unfortunately, whose name is in the Wall Street Journal for doing something that in hindsight, and all of us in the country, the globe, look at this and we go, you should have known better. We try to instill upon you at Anderson the right ethics to make the right call, because we can't be there for you on every time and give you clear direction. You've got to make those calls. And it's a cross between legal, what can you do legally, what the technology allows you to do, and even socioculturally. There are certain things in certain markets you could get away with, let's say, because the culture there allows it, understands it, or does not allow it. And I use kind of the European Union as one that's very restricted. Like you may not want to do that in the EU, but in the US, people wouldn't care. or in Asia, they might not care, or in Australia, they might not care. So think about how all these things are coming together and colliding. Matter of fact, even just within the United States, the privacy laws, the legal of what you can and cannot do is very different by state. Now, as you guys probably know, in 2018, in California, we passed something that's kind of like the California GDPR. And other states are starting to adopt it. You know, the typical model is once California starts, it usually rolls across the country. And it's one of the most pro-consumer. And why is that big for California? Because a lot of these tech companies are based here. So there's a website I've given to you here that has got the latest at the time, and they're still changing. You can even see some are still in legislation. So as managers, especially young managers, you might have this model that you think, hey, we have the data, more data we have is better. It's a strong asset. We don't want to get rid of anything. We should just keep everything and save it. And I want to make sure that you understand, like, well, should you save everything? Because if you think about it, so you're going to be in some very large corporations with gigantic teams, and other people are going to have access to this. And should they have access to this? You know, at the NSA, there were issues of gentlemen working at the NSA that were using some of the techniques to go spy on their girlfriend. It's totally against the rules. They shouldn't have done it, but they did it anyway. Remember, when that access is out there, things will happen. As an executive, you got to take responsibility for that. Can you control it? How do you do access control? And even if you do give that access control, can it be trusted for the employees you have? And really, what are you going to do with this data if you have it? Like, you got to think through, like, why are we saving it? So I want to give you some things that will help you as an executive. And one is to have a very clear and defined retention policy. It's stated, you adhere to it, and you do a purge policy. And this is one that is very near and dear to my heart, because I was at Microsoft when we had the antitrust case from the US government against Microsoft. And at Microsoft, we saved every email ever since the founding of the company. They don't do that anymore. They have a 7-year purge policy, I believe. So why do you need to keep things from a decade ago? Because in litigation discovery, it could come back to haunt you. And imagine all the stuff that you put in an email. So have a policy, state it. And then if a legal discovery comes, you could say, I'm sorry, our policy is a 5-year hold or a 2-year hold or a 7-year hold. We don't have it anymore. And legally, that's fine. You can say that. Matter of fact, this gets even more complicated with healthcare data. And I know a couple of you are writing healthcare data oriented papers. I'm really looking forward to reading those. Matter of fact, Larry Page at Alphabet or Google basically says, if we could mine healthcare data, we would save lives. But isn't your healthcare information your private, personal information? I mean, should you actually mine that data? And there's a big consumer backlash on this because they would be afraid that their information could come up in a Google search. And of course, you know, we could save lives, but according to this New York Times article, it would come with some level of reduced privacy. Now, did any of you, especially the ones in California, chime in and install the Android and the Apple COVID tracking app? So if you got too close to someone, you did not do that, Daniel. You did not do that, Rizzo. Come on, I was expecting that of you.
No way.
Well, I definitely did it. It hasn't gone off once. Because wasn't that what they were trying to do in Israel? Yeah, like, you know, of course, they didn't give you the option. At least here we had the option, right? And they say that the data is purged. It doesn't stay. I think it was a 14-day purge. Singapore too. Did they do it in Singapore as well? Did they force it on you?
Yeah, pretty much.
They did force it on you. You had no choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's you get a token. You have to carry the token everywhere that you go. And it basically works by proximity as well. So it basically starts blinking if you're really near someone. And then they have the tracking system. They actually have an extensive tracking system in Singapore, whereby if someone were to be positive COVID, then they contact the people whom it was near to, and then those get tracked. So, but regardless, I think everywhere we go, we have to scan in our QR code on our phones. Otherwise, they don't let us into stores and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard that's definitely the case in China. It's definitely not here. And California was even late to the game. I kept trying to download it and couldn't get it. Like, it just came out like a month or two ago. Yeah, you mentioned they stopped it after 3 weeks. Was that because of public pressure? Did the Knesset say no more? How did that end in 3 weeks?
They have had to pass a law to allow it, and it had like an expiration date, and they just didn't extend it.
Okay, so they forced it for 3 weeks with no law.
No, with a law.
It was with a
yeah, with an expiration date, and then they didn't extend it because of a public pressure.
Gotcha. So the legislators just got too much pressure and didn't extend, even though that was kind of their goal.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Carlos, you had your hand up. You want to say something?
Yeah, and as business leaders, one of the things that I've been thinking about recently in regards to privacy is not just the customer data that we have, but also the internal associate data. With the platform, especially everybody working from home now, everybody's doing voice over IP, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, whatever, and there's a lot of sales organizations that are looking to measure quality control, measure productivity, et cetera. So we're being monitored a lot more than we know in our day-to-day. I heard one executive recently saying, well, yeah, I go home and I listen to random calls just to kind of see what the kind of mood is and stuff like that. And I thought, I was like, okay, that's a great tool, but that's also super invasive. So I think we're gonna face, as business leaders, whether we are in tech or not, probably a lot more of that decision coming up soon than potentially whether you are the CEO of OkCupid or not. So just want to bring that up.
Yeah, I use OkCupid because it's so obvious, because it's such personal information. I want to bring this lady out to you, Kathy O'Neill. I've actually tried to get her to come to Anderson, but haven't been able to. She actually writes a blog called Math Babe. It's kind of well followed. She feels that we are not ready for healthcare data mining. And this is someone that's pretty into it. She taught at Harvard and Berkeley. She's also part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. And she wrote a book actually called Weapons of Math Destruction. Her thought process is that social inequality can actually be exacerbated by the use of data if it's not done correctly. And again, this is all really new. Legislation has not caught up to this. And she makes quite a strong argument about this scenario. You may want to check out this book if you're very curious. And I want to bring these items up to you because as an executive, again, I'm not worried about the consumer, how you feel about it or not. How do you run your company? If you have information, data assets on customers, consumers, clients within your system, do you have a responsibility to protect it, to do the right thing with it? Should you keep it? Should you not keep it? If you have it in a cloud and that cloud service is breached, are you on the hook? Are they on the hook? Do you have some arrangement set up between there? And you got to start thinking about this in a different context because there are criminals out there that are trying to get into your corporate assets. There are hackers that just want to get in there to do bad things. And now you even have to think through of international governments, perhaps even your own government, depending on where you are. Ask Sony about North Korea, that try to breach your systems. And it can be extremely embarrassing for this. So I want you to take this into deep consideration about how you keep data, why you keep data, and what it can be over time. I want to provide you some considerations here, some things you can put in your pocket and take with you. One is you want to ask yourself and your team, what's the context for what this data is used for? Why was the data originally surrendered by our clients to us? So if you're going to use Uber and you have the Uber app and you agree to their standards and they track you, so they know where you might be, that you want a car, which by the way, they do. That's how they get it to you so quickly. They're pre-positioning cars. Is that appropriate? Well, perhaps in Uber it is, but I can't tell you the number of apps that I've downloaded since the iOS 14 that now tell me this app is tracking you. And it has nothing to do with locations. Like the service that I'm getting from that app has nothing to do with locations, but they're tracking me everywhere I go. It's kind of weird. And it gives me as a consumer a reason to say, is the context of your app worthwhile? Is it good? I would say that, ask that to the CEO of that company. The other thing you want to think about is consent and choice. Did the affected party really have the opportunity to say, yeah, no problem? Did they have an opportunity to decline this thing? And remember, there are now court cases out there where the judge has said, you have pages and pages of terms and conditions. Nobody reads this. If it can't be understood, I'm going to rule against you. So be aware of this. Got to make things simple and clear. And a lot of social media companies are realizing that now. The other thing, responsible. Who's responsible for the application that it's used for? What's the data actually being used for, the relationship derived? Is the use of the data substantiated? Is it appropriate? Does it make sense for the application that you have out there? The other thing is, who owns the resulting data, that metadata that Dion asked about? If I generate data that from your actions, do you own that data or do I own that data? The other thing is it fair? Is everyone being compensated appropriately for the data for all parties that are out there? And does it make sense? And the thing you want to think about too is it considered? What are the consequences of the data collected? And if I use that data and I use it to harm you because it's inaccurate on my part, is that my fault or your fault? Well, go talk to Experian and Equifax and TransUnion, the big 3 credit companies. Their systems are horrible. They're still horrible. They were so bad, in fact, that in the United States, these 3 companies who make money off selling credit information now have to give that to you for free every year just for asking, by court mandate. And trust me, you do not want legal courts in telling you and your company and your industry how they must work because your data management is so weak and the work that you're doing actually harms consumers. Also accountable. If there's a mistake, can I correct it? And I actually tried to do one with Experian. It took 4 months to correct an erroneous piece of information about me in my credit report. That shouldn't take that long. So you got to think about, is there a way for the consumer to go back? So these things kind of keep you as an executive on the straight and narrow and understand how we deal with this data. Again, there's no hard and fast rule, but I want you to be definitely aware of these things as we go forward. Okay, so we have about 42 minutes left of class. What I'd like to do is take a break. So I'm going to ask Jessica to take us out for a break. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? I'm going to go into AI, machine learning. It's going to get a little bit more deeper, but it's very interesting. We're not going to finish this evening, but we're going to get a good part of it done. So Jessica, if you could take us out on a 10-minute break. Everybody go outside, stretch your legs, walk out on the balcony, get some fresh air, and let's come back and we'll talk about AI and machine learning and deep learning, okay? All right, 10-minute break, and I'll see you back here in just a minute.
Professor, I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Just on the final assignment, is there time that we can discuss some logistics on that or some advice? And have like a Q&A maybe or something, or can I just ask you now maybe?
Sure, yeah, ask it now. So final assignment being the simulation or final assignment being your paper?
The paper.
Okay, go ahead.
So it's only my second quarter in the program, and so I've never gone to the library or anything like that. We have not yet written these assignments and citing those things. It's always been like case studies really this whole time. And interestingly, I have like 3 due around the same time this quarter. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about it. But in terms of finding information on your subject, what is your advice on that?
Sure, let me give you this, and anybody listening in are welcome to it. So you have 3 research papers kind of due all this quarter?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're going to get more of these as you go deeper into the 2 to 3 year window within Anderson. But first, let me tell you, I've given you some help. So number one thing I've done on the additional items tab, I've given you a link from our librarian, Monica. She's fantastic. She has a whole set of databases and research. She's willing to help you. All you have to do is ask. Those guys those men and women at the library are fantastic. She has a whole bunch of information she gave to me. It's posted out there. Secondly, I gave you a kind of how to go about doing a research paper. You're not the first student that's asked, especially ones that come back and are working full time or a little bit older. We haven't done a research paper since undergrad. How you go about it, what resources are good and bad. And I've given you a list of kind of respectable ones and not respectable ones. Things like a trade journal or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or a publication like that, but not Wikipedia. you would not use it as a source site. Remember, these are research papers. You're looking for research information that has been done. So most research takes 2 to 3 years to actually come to the marketplace. So, some of you wanted to write about COVID. There's not going to be any research out there. It's just too new. So that's why I'm much more lenient on allowing you to use periodicals and more recent publications, because the research just hasn't been done, published, and gone through peer review to be out there. But hopefully you want to use peer-reviewed research. Your topic, you go research all of the good and bad about it. You pull it all together in a concise format. Let's say it's a minimum 5 pages, so the first 4 of that. By that 5th page, you provide your own expert opinion at the very end that says, based on the research I've done, again, the reason we're having you do this paper is because we want you to learn from it. I predict this, or I anticipate this will be the next action in the industry or whatever you're trying to accomplish. So I've got 3 areas out there under the additional items tab of the course website with stuff like that. So hopefully that'll help you out of where to start, where to go. But it's not that bad, but be sure you do footnote heavily. If you use a quote, that absolutely should be footnoted. But this is just you going, doing research and putting it in a nice, concise format. And I will say, give me an abstract at the beginning. And to help you understand how I grade, I've never done this before, but I'm doing it this quarter. I gave you a cheat sheet of how Professor Blevins grades from what I do from start to finish. And one of the first things I look for is an abstract. Because what I want you to do is be able to write something that's so good, you could publish this in a trade industry journal. And if nothing else, you could always get it on medium.com. Anybody can publish on that. And what people do when they read a web article is they read the first abstract, first paragraph or 2. This is the findings, read further for more. And then you give a nice long summary of what it is. And if someone questions you on the web, they can say, oh, there's your reference. It came from a credible source. I'll believe you on that. Yeah. And then of course, at the end, you want to give your opinion, your expert opinion from all this research that you've done.
All right.
Does that help?
Thank you so much. Yes. I have one last question. On the syllabus, there are links. It says Rosenfeld library link, but it's not clickable. Is that the same thing as the additional items links?
So there's an additional items tab, and inside that tab, go about halfway down, there should be a library. They even have a little logo of a librarian there.
Yep, I got that.
Okay. The link's not working?
No. The link on the syllabus, there's like there are other links work, but on the syllabus itself, the link.
Oh, if you're doing it on the web page itself, it won't work. It's just a view of the PDF. You'd have to actually download the PDF itself.
Oh, that still doesn't work, interestingly. Other ones work besides the ones for the research paper. Don't know why.
I'll go double check. And that's on the syllabus itself.
Correct.
Interesting. All right.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All righty. 5:16, we'll come back unless anyone else has a question. Thank you, Jessica. You can do the music now if you want. All righty. Hopefully everybody gets a little bit of a break there. Well, sometimes it's good to stop for a little bit. So by the way, thank you very much for the interaction. I appreciate that. That section requires classroom interaction to understand. Again, there's no hard and fast rule, but it's an understanding, and you guys are going to be peers for life. When you're in doubt on certain things, pick up the phone and call folks. Talk to people. Come back to your professors at Anderson. We love trying to help you out with this. We want to help you do the right thing. So the next section, we're going to go into artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. This we'll go over a little bit into the next time, but it's a little bit more of me talking and you guys listening. So I'm going to watch the chat, but please raise your hand or interrupt me if you do have a question. We'll get a discussion going if need be. But this, I think, is one of the most critical areas that will be the next big place that executives be working with. And as you know, it is the top of mind. You can't get anywhere without hearing about this. It's in the news everywhere. Matter of fact, if you talk about earnings calls and talking about how many times it's been mentioned on those earnings calls, it's going through the roof. I am big into follow the money, and I also work a lot in venture capital. So you start seeing about where valuations are occurring for startups in the artificial intelligence space, as well as M&A activity and the number of deals going through the roof. This tells you as a business leader, things are happening in this space. So you got to be aware of it and what's happening. And if you're the CFO, and many of you may already be, or you're going to be one soon, it's also going to be a big spend. Look at this number, 57.6 billion by this year, 50% compounded growth rate. This is going to be the next big giant area. So things like retail and marketing and healthcare, obviously fintech, insurance, they're all going to be benefiting from artificial intelligence. And those companies that can derive AI-driven incentives will be taking $1.2 trillion a year of benefit from those non-companies that don't. And of course, the big one that we know of is Amazon. They are leveraging their data assets and their understanding of how consumers consume and buy and watch Prime Video and all the other things, and they're gaining value. Matter of fact, 83% of these early adopters gain value from these initiatives. And progressive companies have already done this. Most companies are trying to figure this out, and the laggards have missed it already. Because if they don't jump on this quick, it's going to hurt them. And I don't want you to be a laggard without question. The other thing you're going to hear a lot about, especially as an executive, is if you start using artificial intelligence, you're going to drop jobs. And I tend to argue with that because just as things have changed over time, humans are very ingenious and they figure things out. And if I were to tell you, there's a huge job opportunity as a social media marketing manager 10 to 15 years ago, that job didn't even exist. There will be more jobs that are created. As you can see here from DataRobot, they will say it's a net gain of jobs of 5 million. Now they're going to be different jobs, but this is actually going to grow the pie for everyone, especially if we do it right. And I want to give you a little bit of historical viewpoint here as an executive so you can understand this. Many of us have heard this new term, data is the new oil. And if you think about the Industrial Revolution, oil was what enabled the Industrial Revolution. It enabled manufacturing, transportation, the automobile came about, power generation, Standard Oil obviously was the big one. Well, I would dare to say that the same thing is happening now, except data is what's enabling the digital revolution. And it's the exact same things. It's manufacturing, it's transportation, it's power generation. It's just a different set of companies. And again, they're very big. That's why you start seeing these companies that are being approached to be broke up, just like Standard Oil was broke up. But as an executive, I want you to take a little bit step back. I want you to think beyond what just the resource of data, but what it can do, new paradigms it could open for you, new marketplaces it could open for you. And when you start thinking like that, then you can see what opportunities are there and go change the world and make it so much better. Now, why do we bring this up in this course? It's a cloud big data course. The great thing that happened with cloud computing is what allowed us to make the data accessible. We couldn't hold that much data before, but thanks to cloud computing, we can. And then of course, once we had it in the cloud, then it could be developed. And that's the big data component. We took these large data sets and we developed with it. And of course, once we develop them, then we can analyze them. We can have machine learning. Machines can actually look at this information over time and analyze and figure things out. And think about it. If they figured things out, the next logical step is, well, gee, if this occurs, what should we do? What would be the next logical great step? Well, that's artificial intelligence. It could help you understand what you can do with these data sets. So I see these highly enabled, and they actually go from one to the next. And that's why artificial intelligence is taking off now. So I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic here and tell me, just like I did with cloud, just like I did big data, if I ask you, what is AI? How do you explain this to mom and dad? What's artificial intelligence? Anybody? And if we don't know this, I'm glad we're in this class now. All right.
If I may, I'll take a stab at it, but I think it's with what the cloud computing, big data, and machine learning, and having all that data, finding trends to predict things, I suppose.
Trends to predict things. You know, I'll take that. That's I'll take that. Here's what here's what people are saying about it. It's the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, translation between languages, the things we do in our head. Basically, all we're doing is simulating the intelligent behavior in computers. All right, we're trying to imitate us, imitate human behavior, imitate the way we think and see through these things. And this is not new. This obviously came mainly from Stanford. That's where the term was coined back in 1956. Everybody thinks it's also new, and it's really not. That really came through this model, as you can see, and really when the robotics of the 70s started coming about, they had to create software that could tell that robotics of what to do. But now it's starting to get to a level of what it can be. Now, I want to walk you through this because I'm telling you, it's not crazy rocket science. This is normal. If you think about human things, human beings, how we understand things, we take in inputs, we process that, and we do some actions. So one of the biggest inputs we have are eyes. It's sight. We see things and we visualize things and we get information off that. And our sight might look different from a dog or cat. It might look different from an insect. But nonetheless, this is an input signal. It's our eyes. And computers have the same thing, except they have a camera. And they see images in the world by numbers. It's just an input device that gathers data. Our eyes are an input device that sends it to our brain. And sorry, we have a little bit of a delay. There we go. Let me wait a minute. Another input is sound. I'm hearing things. So I have an ear, I can hear things, and I hear an analog sound wave. It's another input that I'm getting to process information. Computers do the same thing. They have a microphone and they have a digital sound wave that can analyze things. And then you think about the other thing. It's our senses, our touch. How do we know the stove is hot? Well, we can sense those things. It processes it in our brain. Computers do the same thing. They have digital sensors, pressure sensors, temperature sensors, humidity sensors, all kinds of things like that, and they turn it into code. So if you start thinking about humans and how we think, we take in all these inputs, we process some information, and then we perform an action. Because inputs lead to our processing, lead to an action. Computers do the exact same thing. They have various input devices. They process it in their brain, if you will, their motherboard, the chips that are on the board, and then it performs an action. It's no different. And this is why I want to really get people to understand the capability of artificial intelligence is just mimicking exactly what we do. All right? So you'll hear these terms called artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning. And they're like, well, what does this all mean? Well, they're actually subsets of one another. And I want to help you understand this. And remember, artificial intelligence is just machines mimicking humans. mimicking our behavior, how we think through things. Now, machine learning is a subset of that that basically uses statistical methods to try to understand things. You know, you put up enough information over time, we'll figure it out. Much like a young child, after so many iterations of something, learns things out. They start this machine learning, brain learning. And then there's deep learning, which uses a set of neural networks to basically figure out cause and effect. And I'm going to get more into that in just a minute, but it's a subset of machine learning. So I've heard a lot of executives talk about this, and I want to make sure that you aren't one of these where they say, oh, it's zero coding required. Just bring your data and the machine will figure it out. It learns from the data and it just figures it out for you. And I want to say, well, not exactly. And so I wouldn't want you to state things like that that might not quite be 100% accurate. So I want to show you this little short video. It's a less than 2-minute video on how these things are interrelated so you can kind of understand it a little bit better.
Artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. For anyone who's not a data scientist, the terms associated with computing's next big wave can be pretty confusing. But at the most basic level, the relationship between these three key concepts is fairly simple. Artificial intelligence.
All right, are you guys getting that or not?
No, you can hear the audio.
Black screen.
Just the audio, but not the video.
Correct.
Yep.
All right, let me go here then. It's a 2-minute video. It won't take about a second, but I want to make sure this is loaded up.
Artificial.
So I'm going to share this out. Chrome, share, and then hopefully this will play for you. Sorry about that.
Intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. For anyone who's not a data scientist, the terms associated with computing's next big wave can be pretty confusing. But at the most basic level, the relationship between these three key concepts is fairly simple. Artificial intelligence refers to the broad category of computing in which a system is capable of learning directly from data, a capability made possible by the advent of data analytics and applied either through a set of rules that are evolved over time through human intervention with the system, or increasingly through the process of machine learning, in which the system expands its ability to process and use information without the need for additional human intervention. While the broader concept of artificial intelligence has been around since the 1950s, it was the introduction of machine learning in the 80s that brought the first real wave of significant advancements to the field. Then, as computational performance reached a tipping point in the last decade, a new wave of even more dramatic breakthroughs began to gather momentum. Deep learning is a branch or subset of machine learning that leverages those computational advantages and a set of new techniques, such as neural networks, to make sense of and learn from even larger amounts of data. The result has been an impressive acceleration in the progress of elusive artificial intelligence capabilities. Capabilities like image, speech, and natural language recognition that promise to have a significant positive impact on our everyday lives. The emergence of deep learning also serves as a reminder that the technology and techniques for achieving the full potential of artificial intelligence are not static, but will continue to evolve just like us.
All right, played for everybody, I assume, good? All right, want to make sure, because it actually feeds, and I'm watching it on the monitor, it feeds at whatever pace your connection is. So, but it looks like it goes pretty much for the same for everybody. Okay, so we're back to the main deck. Okay, so I want to give you a little simple example that hopefully you guys can understand. And one of those is like the frequently asked questions on your website. I mean, many of you work for companies, you have like a FAQ part of your website, And you develop those because you want customers to do self-service support. Number one, it's easier for you, it saves some costs, but also it helps customers answer themselves, self-service. And you get a lot of the same questions over and over. It cuts frustration, allows them to be able to connect quickly and easily to get whatever they want. And the concept here is that if you have a lot of the same questions asked over and over, that artificial intelligence could start addressing needs and start learning from it. So have you guys ever been over to the into Vegas when we used to could travel and gone over to the Cosmopolitan Hotel? Anybody been to that? Really cool, swanky hotel, very hip, very cool. They came up with a bot. They call her Rose. By the way, you can call her at any time. You don't have to actually be staying at the hotel. She is an artificial intelligence bot, and she's definitely got a little sass to her. She, is very typical of the hotel itself. If you call her and you say, can you help me get into the coolest nightclub in town and get me on the waiting list? She understands that. And if you say, give me the reservation at the hottest restaurant in town, she knows what that is. She knows what hottest is. And then if you say, to stop the service, you say, okay, leave or stop or quit. And she'll say something sassy like, okay, I understand you don't love me anymore, but I'm still here. If you want me, just call me anytime. She's got a little zazz to her, and she's learning. And what's really amazing about this is it's increased spending on site at the resort by 39%. Of course, she does tend to recommend the hot restaurant in town at the local resort. But the most interesting thing is 90% of guests remember her. That is remarkable if you start thinking about customer satisfaction. And the best part about it is she's learning what customers want. She's learning where they want to go, what they want to do for new services and benefits that the resort needs to offer them. And she can even answer it in your own language. So if you fly over from China, she can speak Mandarin to you. Talk about an incredible opportunity for learning. And so that's where we get a little bit more into machine learning. It's that next business step of evolution, because you're going to be able to figure out what your customers want more to provide them better services. Now, I'm not even going to ask the question on machine learning here unless someone wants to chime in. Yeah, I didn't think so. So really all machine learning is a way for a computer to learn and understand information without having to be programmed to do so. Okay, we're basically asking a computer to figure things out without being explicitly programmed. Because like for Rose, we don't know what the people at the hotel are going to ask her. So we can't code for it because we don't know what they're going to ask. She has to figure it out and learn on her own. So that's the interesting thing with machine learning, because if you don't know what it's going to be, how could you possibly program for it? So the way you have to do this machine learning is you go through a model. And how that happens is you first start with data. You get a whole bunch of data available. You clean it, you prepare it, you manipulate it, and then you train a model. Meaning, if she asks you, where is the hottest restaurant in town? Where is the best restaurant in town? Where is the fanciest restaurant in town? She knows all those different things, and you know the answer to it, let's say. So if you know a bunch of questions and you know a bunch of answers, you can train a model. And then you test the data. What is the #1 restaurant in town? And could the algorithm figure out that #1 and hottest and best might be the same thing? And you test that data out and you see what it gives you. And if it doesn't give you the right answer, you go back and improve it. And it's this process model that allows you to feed things in. I'm going to try this one again. But the problem with that is that some of your biases could be embedded in that algorithm. All right, let's see if I can get this one to work. And Jessica, give me a thumbs up if you're getting it.
Let's play a game. Close your eyes and picture a shoe. Okay, did anyone picture this? This? How about
Okay, I apologize. I'm going to go to another.
Audio's working, but nothing.
Yeah.
Same problem. Black screen, but audio works.
Yeah, I think maybe I just don't have enough processing power here, because now you can even see the video, the link.
Let's play a game.
I'm going to process it.
Close your eyes.
1 second. A little 2-minute video, but it's worth you guys seeing this. All right. There we go. There we go. I'm going to share this out.
And picture a shoe. Okay, did anyone picture this? This? How about this? We may not even know why, but each of us is biased toward one shoe over the others. Now imagine that you're trying to teach a computer to recognize a shoe. You may end up exposing it to your own bias. That's how bias happens in machine learning. But first, what is machine learning? Well, it's used in a lot of technology we use today. Machine learning helps us get from place to place, gives us suggestions, translates stuff, even understands what you say to it. How does it work? With traditional programming, people hand code the solution to a problem, step by step. With machine learning, computers learn the solution by finding patterns in data. So it's easy to think there's no human bias in that. But just because something is based on data doesn't automatically make it neutral. Even with good intentions, it's impossible to separate ourselves from our own human biases. So our human biases become part of the technology we create in many different ways. There's interaction bias, like this recent game where people were asked to draw shoes for the computer. Most people drew ones like this. So as more people interacted with the game, the computer didn't even recognize these. Latent bias. For example, if you were training a computer on what a physicist looks like, and you're using pictures of past physicists, your algorithm will end up with a latent bias, skewing towards men. And selection bias. Say you're training a model to recognize faces. Whether you grab images from the internet or your own photo library, are you making sure to select photos that represent everyone? Since some of our most advanced products use machine learning, we've been working to prevent that technology from perpetuating negative human bias. From tackling offensive or clearly misleading information from appearing at the top of your search results page, to adding a feedback tool on the search bar so people can flag hateful or inappropriate autocomplete suggestions. It's a complex issue and there's no magic bullet, but it starts with all of us being aware of it so we can all be part of the conversation. Because technology should work for everyone.
All right, I'm going to go back over to my share. Share. It's like I'm running a production studio here. I apologize if it takes a little bit of a delay. So I want you to be aware of that because this is the number one thing executives are going to have to deal with. So I'll give you an example. Amazon does a lot of hiring. They do so much of it. They said, you know what, we're really good at this stuff. Why don't we just put all of our resumes into a artificial intelligence form and have it pick the best candidates for us. You know, it won't be biased that way. And you can see here in this industry, most people that are in the tech industry are men, unfortunately. And I apologize about that because I can't even get enough women to come be guest speakers for us. The one that I know, she's always busy, but I keep trying to get her. And then if you look in technical roles, it's even far greater. There's far too many men. So Amazon actually fed in a whole bunch of resumes of their top performers. And unfortunately, they had a bias towards men and they were discriminating against women that were applying for the same positions. Now, once they realized it, they stopped it. But you've got to be aware of how these mistakes can happen. And this is Amazon. They should be aware of this more than anybody, right? It does happen for us. Matter of fact, we're starting to see how our code could actually exacerbate racism and discrimination by not by intention, but by this model upon which you feed information in. So let's talk about a little bit about how this machine learning works. Remember I told you have to like start with a set of data with a bunch of answers and feed it in? That's what you do here is you actually take input data and the data, remember, from history is going to be skewed in certain ways, and you've got to be aware of that. So in machine learning, there are different types of machine learning. There's supervised learning that involves human. There's unsupervised learning that doesn't involve human. And there's reinforcement learning, where you're learning from mistakes, where you just go at it by just raw horsepower. You feed in information to the computer. You say yes or no, right or wrong, no, bad computer, go do it again. And it just goes over and over and over and over. That's the reinforcement learning. So in this supervised learning model, you have data sets that's very clean, data sets with very known labels. You understand what the data is, you understand what it means, and you have a very specific output. this is this, and this equals that. You know that there's no definite, no issue about it. So you're seeking a very specific answer to the data that's in there. So you test it. Here's the data. Did you get the right answer? Because you know for sure what the answer is. So a good example is fraud detection. You see this a lot in financial services firms. The other area is for data sets that you don't know exactly what it is. Like, here's a data set of all of my customers. Now, some of them are going to like this product, some are going to like that product. We don't know which, and I don't know who they are. So I tell you what, just take the whole set and just look for patterns. Look for unknown patterns within these data sets, and you seek out patterns. You see this heavily in customer segmentation. You know, these customers like that, these customers like this. Well, what is this and that? Well, I don't know. We'll go figure it out. And it does that by literally crunching through the numbers of unsupervised, because you don't know exactly what it is. So in the supervised learning, we use something that we know in MBA programs very well, the regression analysis. Things like a regression line. And I know you guys usually have that. If you're not, you're going to take a class on it soon. So is this a bull market or a bear market? Well, I can tell by regression. I can tell very easily with classification. And in unsupervised learning, I'm using statistics to find clusters of like things. Cluster analysis, density estimation, dimension reduction, reduce out the dimensions that don't make sense and knock them off. You're trying to cluster data sets to be able to figure those things in. And then of course, and this is a very nice chart that I always leave with students of different areas that it can work with. Take this one as a golden nugget from this course. There other is the reinforcement learning. You see this in gaming, real-time decisions, robotic navigation, where it actually keeps going. And it just literally crunches through in raw horsepower and looks for yes or no answers. And this is the reinforcement. The computer actually gets scolded, if you will. So I'm going to walk you through an example here with machine learning, with supervised and unsupervised. So you can see here on the left, I've got a classification algorithm. I've got 4 animals. It's either a duck or it's not a duck. So in supervised learning, I'm going to feed this in. I'm going to say, this first thing, it's a duck. The second thing is a duck. This third thing, it's got floppy ears and fuzzy. It's not a duck though. And this other thing, this little hedgehog, it's got quills, but it's not a duck. And you make a model out of that. And then to test it, you say, okay, here's a new animal. I'm not going to tell you what it is. What do you think it is, computer? And it's going to say, well, let's see. It's got web feet. It's got a bill. It's got these feather things. I think it's a duck. Oh, good. Well, it's definitely not a duck. I think it's a duck. So that's supervised. You've fed in data that you know what it is. Now in unsupervised, you don't know what it is. Here's a whole bunch of animals. Classify them. And it takes those 3 animals that look kind of similar. They all kind of have a beak. They all kind of have feathers. They all kind of have wings. I don't know if they're ducks or not, but those 3 things are alike. And these other 2 things, one's fuzzy, one's got quills. They're nothing alike. And so it just clusters them together. So when you feed it another thing, it can tell you what the next thing is that looks like it. And that's how it dimensions out this data. Now, I want to ask you a question to the audience. Which one do you think is the most expensive for a business to run? Anybody, right or left? Supervised or unsupervised?
Supervised.
Supervised, why?
There's some calibration maybe locally, or some calibration that needs to be done.
Well, who does that? People. Or it's a really good
Right,
data set. You pay more for that. Either someone's got to figure out like duck or not duck, or it's properly labeled. So which one do you guys think has the most errors? Supervised or unsupervised?
Unsupervised.
Was that Rizzo?
Unsupervised, because
Unsupervised, absolutely.
It's guessing.
It's guessing. It's just, at least
Is it
initially.
a duck? Is it a goose? They kind of look similar. They're pretty close.
Well, it doesn't even go that far in unsupervised. It just says, is it similar to these other things?
Yeah.
Does it even know duck or goose? So it's more error prone. And so you start seeing things like that. And the way you do this, and I'll finish the class out on this tonight, is you feed in these training data sets. You could have 1, 2, 3, a million of these training data sets. Here's real good data. Here's the answer to whatever the data is. I'm going to feed it through a prediction model. Yes or no, is it right? No, it's not. Then go back through another model. And it just goes through this over and over and over. In unsupervised, you give it a training set. And it says, okay, start grouping these data sets together. Well, these things are kind of round, they're kind of green. These things are kind of triangular, they're kind of yellow. These other things, they're kind of four-sided and they're kind of bluish purple, but they're not exactly alike. These, trapezoid, rhomboid things, they are four-sided too, but they're different than those other ones. It just starts clustering them together, just literally crunching through the raw data power there. And that's how that works. So I tell you what, we're right at time. I'm going to stop here. I knew we wouldn't get through it anyway, but this is a very good discussion. We're going to pick this up on the next class. Please note, we do not have class a week from tonight. I'll see you in 2 weeks because of the President's Day holiday. I am available for you. And I do want to remind you, I'll be sending you out like an info cheat sheet, how to install, how to test, so we can try our VR class at the end of the next class, okay? All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I'll stick around if you have any questions, and we will pick it up here in 2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The librarians that we can, was it Monica you said?
Repeat it for me one more time.
Librarian for the sources for the paper.
Under the additional items tab, Angela Horn has given me a whole section. She's got a downloadable paper. She's got a link there to these databases. I know many of you may not have actually been to our library physically yet, but they are all still on call. So if you have questions or you have needs like, hey, I need to find this information, they'll actually go out and find it for you. They're super helpful. I can't stress it enough. But her email is there, her phone number, her team, as well as a link she gave me to all the online data sets, which I do want to tell you, you do have to VPN in for it to work. It's behind the firewall. So if you don't have the VPN client, you have to download it. IT can help you set it up, but that's the only way to get to our data sets, which is like, Barron's, Wall Street Journal, hundreds of thousands of them that we pay access to. I mean, it's all kinds of databases that we have access to. So,
is there a place, Professor, to download the VPN, or do I have to contact IT? Do you know?
It's pretty simple. If you go to the IT services webpage, it's on the very front page.
Got it.
It's a client called Cisco something.
Cisco, okay, I use it for work too.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You pull down to our SSL server. It's like SSL Anderson UCLA ... something, but you do have to be tunneled in for it to work. I had to learn that the hard way, but yeah.
Okay, no, thank you.
No problem.
Hi, Professor. Just a question on the simulation, since this is mine and a few others is second quarter in UCLA. So just where is it? Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do?
Okay. So you should have received an email 2 days ago from UCLA Bookstore. It will have a private link. You click on that. It will take you to the Harvard Business Publishing website. You have to create a user ID, log on, and password. And through your credentials, you will see my class and my simulation, and you click launch. I will say to you on the front cover page, it'll give you, what it's all about. It has a set of instructions. It has a downloadable like PowerPoint and stuff like that. Read through it first before you launch it. And then when you launch it, it'll have all these windows. It's basically a laundry detergent scenario. Tons and tons of data set. I won't say tons and tons, but a lot you can look through. By region in the United States, by type, by style. You can look at the competitors. You can look at the social media feeds of this fake company. And I'll tell you, it's not fake. It's Procter & Gamble. This is what they built it on. And get very familiar with the data. And then you make business decisions based on that data. You click, hit run, and you see how you did. And you do that each year for 4 years.
Okay, got it.
All right. And then we'll see how well the class
Is
does.
on how intelligently you have made the business decision. Is that what it is?
How you are looking at this online data set. And by the way, they've got nice graphs. It's pretty interactive. I'm really impressed with it. Everybody that's done it's really liked it. But
Not like I have to go into R and program and code something.
No programming at all. No programming at all. It's
Sorry, I missed the first part. Did you say the email has come through or will be coming through?
It should have already come through. She's told me she sent it out on Tuesday. So you, today is the 8th. Oh, it would have came out today. Would have come out today then. You should have it today.
Okay, because I only got an email on the opt out. I didn't get an email with a link to where I should go. So I'll look out for that.
Should be, everyone gets their own private one. I'll double check with Yaneth, but she told me everybody would have got their own. The opt-out thing is by law, we can't bill you something. She told me.
Agree. So that's the only one I got. I didn't get any with a link yet.
I also didn't, Professor, so.
All right, so I have that link. I have that link on the course website. So go to tab 5, class 5.
Okay.
And the link is there. It's like Harvard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something. You know, there's a number associated with the simulation. So that should take you right there.
Okay.
You have to
And I log in with my credentials. Okay.
Well, we have submitted your email as authorized and paid for to use this simulation. So as long as you log in with the same email that you have on file at UCLA, you should be good.
All right, I'll give it a try.
All right, and Yaneth's number is there, by the way. Her email, if you have any issues, they'll walk you right through it. And I'll help you too, absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, absolutely. I'll double check the link though. I actually have a copy of the email. I know what it looks like. I'll post it somewhere. It's from the
Okay,
UCLA
that's good.
store,
'Cause
right?
I was just wondering if I missed it, if it's gone to junk or something else, right? So I just wanted to make sure that it's not sitting somewhere else.
Whatever email is your official Anderson email, like it could be your personal work Gmail, whatever one you have labeled in the UCLA register.
Right.
I submitted that spreadsheet. So whatever that email that is, it would have came to that inbox. Check your junk folder just in case.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
But it's from the UCLA bookstore. I know that.
And that's today, right? Okay.
Yep, today's the
Hey,
8th. Going out today.
I'm just having a couple of questions. Hello, thank you for another great class. That speaker, yes, great today. Question, I have two questions. When you were speaking with Daniel Pack before the break, you explained to him that you uploaded a guide of how you grade it. Was that for the research paper or for the case studies? Because in the additional items folder, I was messaging Jessica about this. There's only an example of how you grade the case studies. And then I had a similar question to Sunita, because in the session 5, maybe I just missed it, but I didn't see the link to the data simulation in there. And then those are just my two questions I had. Well, I guess it's 3, and that was not brief.
Okay. I will make sure the link is there. I'm pretty sure it is, but it's under data simulation under where you submit, I put it there, but I'll double check. On the case, not the paper, I'm almost positive I wrote on the paper. It's like I'd have to pull it out right now, but it's how Professor Blevins grades. Like I give this to you, as well as 2 others on how to write, or 1 other on how to write the paper. But I don't think I gave you anything on cases.
Okay. No, you gave us one on how an example of a case study analysis, and then it has your commentary in it. And then I was also looking at the additional items, and I didn't see one for the research paper. And you mentioned to Daniel there was one for the research paper.
All right. Well, let me just go in there right now. Hang on one second.
So you have Professor Case Study Analysis Guidance, and then you have for the final paper how to write the citations, but cite your sources. But I also could not find the.
Well, then that's it.
That's it. The case study analysis, how you grade.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's what I was asking, because that's what I saw, but I didn't see like an abstract in there, or maybe I did and I missed that.
Okay, so the first thing.
Yeah, for the simulation, I can't find the link in week 5 either. Yeah.
All right, so let me.
Same thing here. I'm sincerely trying to find the link, can't find it.
So for the additional items, you have the case study analysis, the write-up guidance, and the example case.
Hang on, hang on. Now I'm talking to three of you. So let me go one at a time. I'm in the additional items tab. In there, I have a guidance on how to write a case study, including some notes from me and an example. Then you go further down and I have the UCLA Library databases to help your research on your individual paper with Angela's name and information. And then further down, I have how to cite properly cite final research, because a lot of people were like writing a paper off the top of their head. Like, no, you have to cite things. And Angela gave me these examples further within that same bracket, how to cite from both the library and the business library and the regular library. Yeah, and everything else is supplemental. It's nothing associated. It's just extra if you want it. So yes, I've given you how to write a case study, some help. Yes, I've given you links to the library to help for your final paper. And yes, I've told you how to write. And in the case analysis write-up guidance.pdf that I created, inside that document at the bottom, it's a pretty big doc, I gave you a lot of stuff, is my own personal how Professor Blevins grades. Like I'm making it super simple for you guys. So I just downloaded it. Okay, so yeah. So inside that document is how to write a paper, what I'm looking for, how you should cite. I even gave you the library link inside that paper too. I gave you a write-up of the syllabus. I gave you some resources about how to write. Oh, you know what? I may have, oh, that's the case study. Let me go down here. All right, let me, I don't see that specific thing. Let me go, I know I uploaded it.
I only knew about it because I was listening during the dinner break and I was like, oh, that sounds like a great resource.
It is. Let me find exactly where it is. I'm gonna send out a note to the class anyway with like a recap. I didn't do one this week, but I'll do one. And I will make sure. That's extra. That's a good point. I'm almost positive I did it, but maybe I didn't. CCLE sometimes is wonky. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I will make sure it's I'm calling it How Professor JB Grades.
Awesome. That would be great.
Sorry, Professor. I went to week 5. Not able to find the link to the simulation. And I checked my emails and it's not there.
Okay. Let me. I'm checking the links is what I'm doing. So I'll make sure it's there. But tomorrow I'm going to send out a class note anyway. I'll make sure it's in there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. This is, and your CCLE is also very robust. So when we're asking you all these questions, it's just because you're saying these other great things are there and we're like reading and
no, please bring it up. you know, every year students ask for more. So I keep adding more.
You don't need to be like that, but you're just.
No, please. But I know I put this up here. I know I did. I did this last week. But I will make sure it's up there. I have it. I
What
will.
is,
Thank you.
yeah,
Is
what
there
is the
a
write-up?
visible feature maybe?
I'm sorry?
That visible feature section? I apologize to that. I didn't mean to cut. We started at the same time.
That's okay. And I know what you're saying. And I can see visible and not visible. And I'm looking at it all and I don't see it.
Oh, okay. No, I don't mean to ask. Some of my other professors have like talked about that. I just asked that way. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a lot of things that are hidden to you and then I release them as they come due. So I'm looking at it all and I don't see it. So
Got it. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I know I put it up there, but CCLE is not the best, but I'll make sure it's up there. That okay.
Bring
What-
on Canvas sooner than later.
Yes,
Is
absolutely.
CCLA hosted in AWS, Professor, or where is it? Is CCLE hosted in a public cloud?
It's the limitation. Oh, I only know about this as I asked, but I want to hear the way he's going to say this.
So it used to be on site as of last year. It now went to the cloud. There at CCLE, it took us a while to get there, but it took this company even longer. You know, if you really want to know, we're going to go to Canvas soon. My other campus where I teach uses Canvas. It's far better, in my opinion. We just haven't moved over, but we do it all of UCLA, not just Anderson. But we stepped up to be the early adopter, and I volunteered to be the beta guy. So hopefully by summer, they're going to let me have access. I love Canvas. It's far more robust. But, you know, this thing's been here for 15, 20 years. I mean,
Yeah, it does seem like it. Okay.
University, you know, this is a part-time job for me. I'm not an academic guy. Universities aren't necessarily the most progressive, but I will say UCLA and Anderson specifically are far more progressive than most. So bear with us. We'll get you there, I promise.
No.
I do the icons and the colors, and I try to do the site to make it easier.
Yeah, no, you definitely of my I've been in 2 quarters of, but definitely the most robust CCLE I've had. So
And
that's
hopefully easy. I try to make it clear, you know, so.
You do.
I know you guys don't have enough time to look for, I've seen some other professors' CCLE sets and I can't find anything, so.
Have you like thought of, is Anderson ever like getting close to proposing a standardized CCLE approach, or just how like hierarchical websites would?
Yep, so we have one and it's available to any professor who wants to utilize it, but we don't mandate that they have to use it. So
it doesn't become standard.
we don't force it. We highly recommend. And I took a lot of these things from that template. Absolutely. I think it's a good thing to do.
Okay.
Well, hopefully we're getting more consistent. We're trying to, I promise you. I actually sat in a meeting where they showed us, here's what it should look like, and here's what it should have. But then there's also a lot of things like, you know, a disclaimer on, you know, copyright and disclaimer, you know, so there's all these other stuff that I have to put in. I have to put in your learning objectives, you know. I don't know how many students actually read that, but it's required for our accreditation. So I do that, you know, so we're trying to be more consistent. But again,
Esther, I just want to clarify one thing. Before the simulation, back to it again, just because I'm not able to wrap my head around it unless I see it, of course. But just thinking about the grading for that, is that based on the simulation choices that we make, or is that based on the write-up that you want us to submit?
No, the write-up, I just want to know. I want to know what you were thinking about. The grade is going to come specifically from who does best and who does worst.
Okay.
So someone's going to get an A+ and someone's going to get a B-, and
sure.
And your results will dictate that. It's all going to be numeric. It's the easiest thing I have to grade.
So the one pager is what choices we've made and why and stuff.
Yeah, I want to understand. Just a short one, less page, not, you know, just one page. Told me, here was my strategy. Here's why I did what I did. You know, I just want to understand a little more than, you know, I just clicked some buttons to see what would happen. I want to understand you did a little bit more than that.
Got it. Okay, no format for that one pager, right? It's just a write-up of, hey, here's my strategy, here's what I thought, and just,
Right. What you discovered, I tried this, it didn't work. So year 2, I tried that, you know, year 3, I tried that. you know.
I've done a couple of simulations, so I get you where you're going, where you're going. Okay, just a write-up. Thank you.
There's some students I can tell, they just clicked randomly. That's not a strategy.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And the good thing is being
Thank
recorded for your classmates. Hopefully they'll gain from it. Anything else? Okay. I will see everyone in 2 weeks.
Thank
you. Well, yeah.
All right, Dion, one more question.
I thought I read on the syllabus that it said that the better of the two would be taken for our grade. But then on the session 5, it says that you're recording both. So
you do a test run and then you do a real run, because it takes, I want you to understand it, so, it took me 2 or 3 runs to like, oh, now I get it. It makes more sense the second run. Second run also goes a lot faster. You would think that your first test run would be a lower score than your real run, but some students actually did better in their test run. So last year I said, you know what, I'll take the better of the 2.
Got it.
Maybe
Okay.
you didn't know what you were doing, but you actually did pretty well. And again, the reason you want to do 2 runs is to learn. And so you go through it. But sometimes a few students did worse the second run, the one I normally would test. And I can tell by the timestamp, which is which.
Right.
But 1 or 2 students complained, and I said, you know what? All right, I'll take your best score. It's easy for me.
Thank you.
I just sort by highest, and then I go from there.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering all these questions. Yes, I normally don't stay late, but I took most of my calls off video today so I could have my eyes for this, because it's hard to be 14 hours on screen. Okay.
It is, I know. My camera keeps going off because it's so hot. It's been on all day, so I apologize about that. I know what you're
I'm curious, what's your other half-time job, if you're able to share?
I'm sorry?
Your other half-time job, or you said this was half-time job. Do you have another half-time job or another job? What's your main?
I do. Yes, I'm an adjunct professor. I just teach part-time. The dean asked me to, so I stepped in, happy to do it. I love it. I love teaching you guys. It's fun for me. But no, I run my own consulting business, my own strategy consulting, mainly around technology strategy.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I do. And I, do a lot of work overseas right now. But yeah, I do strategy work. I used to work for Deloitte for years. So.
Oh, you worked in consulting.
Yeah, I did it with them. And I sometimes sub to them. Sometimes they'll have a client and I'm a sub to their work. And sometimes, I might bring in them. So, but yeah, I do consulting. I pick my own client now. It's a little bit easier for me.
Wow. I mean, I saw that in the bio, but then I thought when you were adjunct professor here that you were teaching somewhere else as well, but you're just here and then in that. Okay. Not to.
I do teach at another school.
Yeah, I thought that. What school is that? I thought that's what Sadek was asking.
Oh, Cornell in New York.
Oh, okay. Let me not react to you like that. Pretty nice, very nice.
No, hey, they're a great school.
Yes, they are.
So I think ranking wise, they're right up there with. They're fantastic students. I used to live in New York, so it's easy for me to get there. And but it's off now because of COVID. So we'll see what happens. But I only teach 1 quarter, 1 class there on Saturdays. They do their things differently. We go all day Saturdays, so only go for 3 Saturdays. So it's different.
Okay. Yes.
Thanks for that. Just curious. Sorry to keep you up so late. But thank you.
Oh, no problem. Anything else?
No, thank you. Thank you, Don.
You've helped me. This will save for him. All righty. Take care, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah.